hola tunje. Tell them I hola tunje. Wine on the thing I want it. Stay on the mind I'm on it. Anything that you come with, tell them hola tunje.
Soca just give me powers. Yeah, make me jump and fit for hours. Soca just give me powers. Yeah, drink me rum and share with others. Fit for hours. The soca powers. It's a wonderful feeling to share with others. All my brothers and all my sisters. Today we making we name. Car, we partying sun or rain. We don't care what the people say. Once the music hit my brain, so much powers I can't explain. Until I call a name, when the Father take me away. All of my friends will say, I'm phenomenal. I'm phenomenal. We're phenomenal. I'm phenomenal. I'm phenomenal. Phenomenal. We're phenomenal. Yeah, yeah.
This girl says that she loves me and I just love her. She says that she needs me and I just need her. She says that she wants me and I just want her. For her love, just give me a little wine. That's all I'm asking, give me a little wine. You know you want it, a little wine. Hey, hey, a little wine. Her love, hold me close, baby, hold me close. Watching you, gotta keep in touch with you. Come, baby, hold me close. Watching you, gotta keep in touch with
My girl
you.
go down to the ground, go down, baby, down to the ground, go down. My girl go down to the ground, go down, baby, down to the ground, go down. My girl go down to the ground, go down, baby, down to the ground, go down. My girl go down to the ground, go down, baby, down to the ground, go down. Because the guy is the harder it falls. Since you bam bam big, baby, drop it down on the ground. Hey, the wrong that is it better it shake. So when they make it shake, yeah, shake it, don't let it break. Cause you are the best, my girl. You are the best girl, and I'm lying. You are the best, my girl. You are the best girl without trying. You are the best, my girl. You are the best girl, and I'm lying. You are the best, my girl. You are the best girl. So swing it around, just swing the thing, baby. I want you drop it down, I want you swing it around, just swing the thing, baby. I want you drop it down, I want you swing it around, just swing the thing, baby. I want you drop it down, I want you swing it around, just swing the thing, baby. I want you drop it down, yeah. My girl go down to the ground, go down, baby, down to the ground, go down. My girl go down to the ground, go down, baby, down to the ground, go down. My girl go down to the ground, go down, baby, down to the ground, go down. My girl go down to the ground, go down, baby, down to the ground, go down.
Leg up, leg up. Eh.
And good night, guys. I am extremely sorry for the wait and late start, but we are officially live streaming and we will have mini debates underway. So tonight, as you know, we are having a different format for mini debates. It will take on a bit of the US presidential style debate, which allows candidates to interact with each other and answer questions. You guys will not be allowed to pose questions to the candidates this time around, but however, rest assured, you most definitely will at the debate night scheduled for March 14th. So tonight we have with us Mr. Devon Bruce. He is our moderator, but before I get into that, I have a few excuses from some candidates. Miss Joy Drayton won't be able to join us tonight as she has an exam. Miss Renata Haynes Lane, she is sick. Miss Katrina Bacchus, she's also sick. Michael Walters Frederick, Miss Jazara Wilson, and Miss Iman Beckles. They would have asked to be excused from this afternoon's session. So without further ado, Mr. Devon Bruce is a political analyst and social commentator in Barbados. He is a graduate of the UWI Cave Hill campus at the undergraduate and postgraduate levels in political science. Throughout his professional career, he continues to be involved in education at the tertiary level, media, broadcast, and communications, publication, and political consultancy. He has a keen interest in governance, political information, and education and mentorship. He believes that anything is possible through a sound education. And with that, I will turn over to Mr. Bruce.
Good night, and thank you so much, Chanel, for that lovely introduction. And good night to everyone. It really is a pleasure to see all of you here tonight, and welcome to the UWI Cave Hill Campus 2022 mini debates. As previously mentioned, I am Devon Bruce, and it is my pleasure to be your host for the night. I would also like to make a special welcome to the various candidates who we have tonight and who will be debating, and I wish you guys all good luck. So before we proceed, there's a bit of housekeeping, so to speak, and I will discuss somewhat of the format going forward so the audience has an idea as well as the candidates. And the format is as follows. Each candidate will make an opening statement for no more than 3 minutes about themselves, their mandates, and why the student body should elect them to serve. After those introductions or statements, candidates will receive a series of general and specific questions that were previously compiled, as Chanel has mentioned. The general questions will be presented in a panel discussion-like format where the various candidates can choose to respond or not respond, and they would have 1 minute and 30 seconds to do so. The segment will also allow for rebuttals for about 30 seconds in response to a candidate and in response to the questions that are posed. Candidates will be separated into groups, and in essence, me as moderator, I would have privileges to ask these candidates questions directly as opposed to the general questions as well too. And the groupings are as follows. So we have group number 1, the faculty representatives. We have group number 2, the hall chairs. The group number 3 will be represented by chairpersons, and group number 4, the officers. And finally, we have group number 5, the executives. So that is the general rundown of the format for tonight. And some additional housekeeping matters, I would ask that everyone remain muted, that being the audience, so we don't have any interruptions during the presentations. And I would also ask the candidates to remain muted when they're also not presenting. As it relates to when you wish to present, you can unmute your mic and begin to speak. And let's just keep this entire process respectful and just professional going forward. As Chanel mentioned, there are some apologies from various candidates, so I will not repeat who those individuals are. So at this point, I will move into the 3-minute introductions. And I, as moderator, I will be timing you guys to ensure that we have, or that rather we stay within the time periods allotted to each one of you. So with that, I will begin the introductory aspects. And in group number 1, we have the faculty representatives. And first up, I will invite Mr. McKeel Benson, I believe it is, to unmute himself, Faculty of Sports, so that he can give the audience his 3-minute introduction into himself, rather, or of himself. We begin.
Good night, everybody. My name is Michael Besson, and I am your candidate for the Faculty of Sport. I have been playing sport since I could remember. It's been years. I've served on the national team for Trinidad and Tobago for over 10 years. The reason why I would say that you should vote for me is because I have been working diligently and very closely with our current exec, making things happen, thinking about the students, putting them first and getting a lot of stuff done. Just stay close. Coming up soon. So I have the experience. I'm passionate about this, and this is something that I would really enjoy being able to do for you. Just to tap into my mandate, I have 3 categories. We have the academic, we have the outreach, and we have the sporting aspect. So one of the academic aspects I'd like to just touch on is where the Faculty of Sport I would like to lobby for us to have supplemental exams, because because our faculty is so small, if 1 or 2 persons fail a particular course, they have to wait until the next year in order to do it. But I would like to try to lobby for us being able to do supplemental exams where we could, if you pass the coursework, you'll be able to just do the final, to pay to do the final exam, which I think is reasonable, rather than having to wait the entire year to reset the exam. So that is one of the things that I would like to implement. In terms of outreach, I would like to visit the primary and secondary schools in Barbados. Most of them, to try to get them, a little more on board, and just to show a little more knowledge about what the Faculty of Sport entails, what we do, jobs you can get out of the Faculty of Sport, etc. Just to shed a little light on that. And in terms of sport, within our faculty itself, I would like to create a bit more of a competitive atmosphere where each year group could, compete against each other, because our faculty is based on sport. And I feel like if we engulf the entire faculty with this particular atmosphere, when Blackbirds go out to represent, we always be ready. That's just the truth. And that's pretty much it from me.
All right, thank you so much, Mikhail. And that was the representative, or rather the candidate for the Faculty of Sports. And following Mikhail, we have a Mr. Michael Patrick, who is the candidate for the Faculty of Law. So as you unmute your mic, Michael, I invite you to give your 3-minute presentation.
Devron, I think Michael dropped out. So you can move on to the next candidate.
Yeah, certainly, and we will have him back as soon as he is. So that actually covers now Group 1, and we move into Group 2, which would be the hall representatives. And first, we have the candidate for the Frank Worrell Hall, and that is Miss Shinwane Daniel, I believe it is. Apologies for the mispronunciations, but I invite you to unmute your mic and give your 3-minute presentation.
Mr. Moderator, Madam Oro, Blackbirds, and most specifically, residents of the Castle on the Hill, my fellow Worrellites, a pleasant good night. For I am Super Senior Son. However, tonight you can call me Shawayne Daniel, your candidate vying for the position of Sir Frank Worrell Hall Chairperson 2022-2023. I hail from the beautiful tri-island state of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, and it is with esteemed grace and vigor that I offer myself up for service. I have never shied away from student leadership during my time here at the University of the West Indies. I immediately jumped at the opportunity to be the sports representative for the Grenada Students Association 2021-2022, and I was enrolled as an ambassador in the UWI Start Corps. At the end of my first year, I was deemed best sports representative for all island associations for the school year. That propelled me to offer myself up for service again, as I am currently the Deputy Hall Chairperson of the Sir Frank Worrell Hall and the Vice President of CARICOM Relations in the UWI Start Corps Cable chapter. On halls, people may term me as insane, as I am the only resident pursuing a degree in pure mathematics. So it is without a doubt that I bring you on a mathematical journey with me tonight. However, this trip does not include X and Y's, nor does it contain proofs by contrapositives and so on. It is a basic number line from 1 to 4. The 4 significant plans that I intend to complete if and when elected as Hall Chairperson of the Sir Frank Worrell Hall 2022-2023. 1. Frank Helps. This is an initiative geared towards making welfare more accessible to residents on the Hall. What I did is I reached out to alumni, family, and friends, and I said, hey, commit to the Hall. We need your help. Commit monetary donations to the Hall. And I've reached out to about 15 individuals so far, and I've already had about over $3,000 in commitments. What's going to happen is we're going to split that in half, and we're going to say, hey, half is going to go to groceries to fill the pantry that we currently have, and the other half is going to stay in hand to help persons with transportations and stuff like that when they need money. 2, we serve, we benefit. This is an initiative which seeks to reward the councillors of the Sir Frank Worrell Hall with slight reductions in their living rate, or at least that was the plan. The Hall Chairperson of the Sir Frank Worrell Hall lives for free. What I decided to do is I'm going to pay half of that, and I'm going to give about 4.1, 4.2% to each of the 12 councillors as a reduction on their living rates. When walking around and speaking to the residents, they said to me, why not give to the welfare instead of reducing on the resident or on the councillors' rates? And I took that and I sat and I said, hey, probably that is something that I can do. So that mandate is still up in the air as to, should I give to welfare or should I help reduce the councillors' rate? On a more administrative level, though, I spoke to the halls admin and we decided that, hey, the deputy hall chair of all the halls are important. So we're going to go to the administration of the school and we're going to say, in the event that the hall chair is not available, is sick, cannot return to school, God forbid, the deputy hall chairpersons, they act as the hall chair. So they need a reduction on their rates. What's going to happen is it's going to happen for Sherlock, Frank, and Keith, and it's going to happen from this year going forward. Just to run through quickly, 3 RE face-to-face. This is advocacy for intermovement between halls from September. 4 Lions Row. The residents of the Frank Worrell Hall are considered lions. And we know that a lion's row is its voice. This is exactly what this mandate is. It is about the residents' voice. Here, residents will be able to voice their concerns, stating exactly what they want. This is where I come in. I will get these concerns fixed. Conclusively, it is evident that the Sir Frank Worrell Hall needs a selfless leader who will stand for and with the residents. A leader who is passionate about the hall, one who loves the hall, and has experience in hall's life and its culture. I am that leader, your humble servant, Shawain Daniel, candidate for the position of Sir Frank Worrell Hall Chairperson 2022-2023. Worrellites, on March 15th, make the right choice and join me as we move Worrell forward for a better tomorrow.
And thank you so very much for that, Mr. Daniel. I really would press everyone to ensure that they remain within the 3-minute time period, because I would really hate to interrupt your very beautiful speeches. But following Mr. Daniel, we have another Daniel, and this is a Mr. Daniel Wilson, who will also be a candidate for the Frank Worrell Hall. So as you unmute your mic, Mr. Wilson, I invite you to give your 3-minute presentation to the audience.
Pleasant good afternoon, good evening to you, the moderator, to all the students here on this Zoom, and to the residents of the Frank Worrell Hall. My name is Daniel Wilson, and I'm simply here to have a genuine and unscripted conversation with you as to who I am and my plans to really put the crown back on the castle, putting the crown back on the Frank Worrell Hall. So my name is Daniel Wilson. I'm 19 years old, and I hail from the land of sun, sea, and soca, Trinidad and Tobago. And ever since my high school level, I've been really interested in student advocacy, giving back, and really working with young people to help them develop themselves. And throughout my various experiences, whether it be through civil society organizations, through the National Association of Student Councils, which I am currently a member of, and through my various volunteerism activities, I think I have amassed a wealth of experience to help me execute the portfolios of Frank Worrell Hall, of the Frank Worrell Hall chairperson, sorry. And I want to take you through a bit on what I want to do for Frank Worrell Hall. So I have created and compiled a mandate list with 7 mandates, as well as a strategic plan on how I want to execute each and every one of them. And I think most importantly, what I want to touch on is putting the crown back on the castle. Now, we can't always put makeup and cover up a pig's face. We all know the history of the Sir Frank Worrell Hall Council over the past year, and it is indeed something that needs to be fixed. So my first mandate, the epitome of my campaign, is putting the crown back on the castle, restoring that pride, reputation, and good governance structure of this illustrious castle on the hill. I also want to create a Frank Worrell Hall website, as well as creating and building stronger relationships with the larger UWI community. Now, this does not overshadow the basic things that residents here on Frank need and desire. We also plan to implement basic necessities for residents, including things like bathroom mats, hooks for you to hang up your towel when you're bathing so you don't have to reach quite by the door. Simple things to make resident life more convenient and more comfortable. So overall, this is me, this is Daniel Wilson, and this is my presentation to you. Stay tuned for my strategic plan. It will be released very soon, as well as this flyer updating my mandates. I am yours for service, yours for genuine leadership, and yours to place the crown back on the castle. Vote Daniel Wilson on March the 15th for the Sir Frank Worrell Hall chairperson. Thank you.
And thank you, Daniel, for that, and certainly for remaining within the allotted time. And following Daniel, we have a Miss Emily Williams, who will be a candidate for the Sir Philip Sherlock Hall. And as you unmute your mic, Emily, I invite you to give your 3-minute presentation. Over to you.
The lioness is on the rise. Don't you ever have doubt. We're little, but we're taller. I feel like introducing myself just by saying my name is not at all representative of who I am and who I have become over this past year. I'm not going to introduce myself as a single entity. I'm introducing myself as a Sherlockite who advocates proudly on behalf of the lions and lionesses that reside on the Sir Philip Sherlock Hall. I was a cub a few months ago, learning the history and culture of this illustrious hall. Now I have developed into a lioness, ready to serve as King Fatacock's royal soldier. On a personal level, I go by Emily Williams, and I'm currently studying to achieve a bachelor's in law degree. I will always do a vibe check and extend a paw to any member of my family when needed. As a young Jamaican author and poet, I'm a proud subset of Sir Philip Manderson Sherlock, who himself was a known Jamaican poet and founding father of the Sherlock Hall, a home away from home. Specifically to my Sherlockites, living on a hall with such a rich culture and history, over 50 years to be exact, the perception of the hall has been shaped and molded into nothing but greatness and progress. We took a break this past year, and it was all about revival. But the door that we are walking into has a journey behind it. Not just any journey, but a successful one. My aim is to bring Sherlock. No, better yet, my aim is to bring my family to a place where Sherlock is over 50 years, but we are still the newest thing on campus. I said that with my chest. Let's put a cap on it for now. I am Emily Williams, the key to Sherlock's successful journey, a hall chairwoman who is ready to serve you, a hall chairwoman who does not simply have the key, but a hall chairwoman who is the key. I thank you.
And I thank you, Emily, for that presentation. And that really wraps up the group number 2, which will be the hall chairs. And I would really want to thank you guys again for those very passionate and educational presentations thus far. Now, following the hall chairs, we have the group 3, which are chairpersons. And starting those presentations would be Ms. Tiffany Pierre, who is a candidate for the International Affairs Committee. So as you unmute your mic, Tiffany, I invite you to give your presentation. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good night, everyone here. My name is Tenacious Tiffany Pay, and I want to serve you as your next IAC chair. I am from the beautiful island of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. My plan is simple: to build back better. We are going to do this through 3 things. Promoting inclusion. By doing so through activities such as partnering with international universities and organizations. I will also revive the buddy system so that all regional and international students will feel welcome and appreciated at our beautiful Cave Hill campus. Thirdly, I will bring back all activities for inter-island associations through the IAC Leadership Gala and the Cultural Fair. I have always been passionate about volunteering. Being a CARICOM Youth Ambassador for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as well as a member of the OECS Youth Advisory Network, has really helped me to understand how important it is to foster strong partnerships, to promote that inclusion so that we all feel at home wherever we go. I, Tiffany Pay, I'm ready to serve the students of the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus. So let us all build back better. Let us all climb tiers with pay as your IAC chair. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Tiffany, for your introduction. And following Tiffany, we have Affinity Williams, I believe it is, and she would also be running for International Affairs Committee. So I hand over to you, Ms. Williams.
Good evening, moderator. Thank you again. Good evening, fellow candidates and students. As an international student coming from the beautiful, naturally filled resource country of Guyana, I must say that at the beginning of my campaigning, I decided to head down to Bridgetown myself to collect my campaigning materials to ensure that I'll be able to speak with the students on campus to teach them and educate them and enlighten them about my campaign. And it is with this determination and drive, I head down to Bridgetown, not knowing that I had given the incorrect directions to get there. So when I got to Bridgetown, I realized that I had to walk all the way to the end of Broad Street. However, I continued and I pressed on. And I must assure you that I will adapt this determination and drive into being the International Affairs Committee chairperson here at the Cave Hill campus. First, I would like to start by saying that I will ensure that the International Affairs Committee chairperson and the International Affairs Committee is visible, because my interest is that the International Affairs Committee is not that well known. And I will achieve this by ensuring that the international students have cultural, social, and professional opportunities, not just cultural, where they are exposed to knowing about the region and also learning about how our foreparents got here and whatnot. So professional opportunities will be administered and encouraged for the international students so that they can develop soft skills and to promote and encourage personal development and professional development. But it is with this, my academic background as a communication studies student at the University of Guyana and currently a master's student here at the University of Cave Hill. I will integrate these two majors in that communications and e-governance go a long way. Communication will help me to ensure that information regarding the international student and the international committee in that students and international students, they have all the requisite information to help them as they want to become students of the University of the West Indies here at Cave Hill campus. In addition to that, my mandates, which are pushing peace of progress, which are promoting inclusivity, positivity, peer motivation network, pioneering, and pioneering. So each of these P's have a different mandate and a different responsibility. So with peer motivation network, that will help international students to understand and to understand what it's like being here as students and where other students are able to give them advice with respect to how they're able to cope and settle here at the University of the West Indies campus. In addition to that, I wish to lobby for an inter-exchange program between the University of Cave Hill, St. Augustine, and the Mona campus through a partnership with the different international affairs committees. This inter-exchange program will help international students here to also meet other international students as themselves so that they can also share their experiences here at the respective campuses. I urge you to vote for a practical leader. All of my initiatives are not merely geared to cultural activities, but they're here to help the students gain professional skills, and that when they leave the University of the West Indies, they're able to go back to their respective countries to learn to be more employable and to have these skills that will help them to climb the ladder within their working environment. Vote for a practical leader. Vote for pushing peace.
All apologies, Ms. Williams, you've completely run out of time.
Thank you.
So I'm sure you will have an additional chance to finish your presentation and really answer questions at a later segment, but I really must move on. Thank you so much for that. And following Ms. Williams, we have Mr. Paul Miller, who is the candidate for the Union Committee Chairperson. So Paul, as you unmute yourself, I invite you to present your introduction. Over to you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Moderator. A vote for Paul is service to all. Ladies and gentlemen, good night. I, Paul Miller, hailing from the country of Antigua and Barbuda, present myself tonight as your Union Committee Chairperson candidate for the upcoming Guild elections. Who is Paul Miller? I am the person looking to strengthen the core of the Guilds Union. To do that, I have come up with initiatives. Before getting into that, there is an initiative by the current UCC that I would love to continue. Seeking sponsorships for the Guild. The Guild has benefited from this in many different ways. For example, filling up the Guild's pantry. If elected as the UCC, one of my initiatives would be to maximize profit with the use of Guild's assets. I plan on doing that by coming up with creative ways to carry out this initiative. Secondly, promoting and fostering student businesses is without a doubt the initiative that I am most passionate about. In my opinion, there should be someone to give students the opportunity to showcase and advertise their businesses. This will help them to widen their market at UWI Cave Hill. In addition to that, UWI Cave Hill is said to be the melting pot university of the Caribbean. This university points its focus to regional integration. As one of my initiatives, I would like to host social events to promote student integration. Based on what I stated earlier, this initiative is to ensure that this saying stays true. To that end, I will conclude by saying this. You need a leader who is communicative, organized, reliable, and efficient. A person with these characteristics is needed to lead the charge of strengthening the core of the Guilds Union. I am that person. Vote Paul, and that is all. Thank you.
And thank you, Paul. And interestingly enough, that is all for group number 3 as well. So as we press on, we've just had the chairpersons and the individuals running for those various positions. Now we have group number 4, which would be the PRO officers. And first up, we have Mr. Tevin Cole, I believe it is. As you unmute your mic, Tevin, I invite you to give your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Bruce. A pleasant good night to all. Blackbirds, my name is Tevin Cole. Before we get into it, let me ask you a very simple question. Don't you think that I have the face, and most importantly, the voice that is capable of leading the next Guild of Students to public relations heaven? You must be asking yourself, through my campaign so far, why have I not focused on the goals of a public relations officer? I believe that it is important that you do not just get a public officer, but somebody who will represent your views as UWI Blackbirds to the highest degree possible. That is my goal. Not only is it my goal, now I have another question to pose to you. Not only do I have the face, not only do I have the voice, isn't it something that you believe that you can trust? Fortunately, trust is the name of my mandate. Trust stands for transparency, reliability, sustainability, and timely. There is only one way to go. Tevin for PRO. Now, Blackbirds, before we get into it, I think it's important to know where I come from. I hail from the land of Trinidad and Tobago, and currently my major is computer science. I'm a fan, I am an extremely big fan of photography, videography, and content creation. Most of you who have seen me around campus know that I'm a very easy person to get along with. That is something that I believe is important in fostering in the next Guild of Students. A Guild of Students that communicates, a one that works together to create a sustainable future, not only for us, but the guild that comes after. It is clearly important that our image, not only to ourselves, but to you, the Blackbirds, is held to the highest degree possible. You might be asking yourself, why? We've seen everything that comes to the forefront when there is trouble, adversity, and diversity. You must be asking yourself, why am I going through this script? It can't be something that we look to see what is the next thing to be. We want somebody who represents we. And Blackbirds, I am here to tell you, have no script, because the paper is empty. And that is why on March 15th, Tevin for PRO is the only way to go. Not only would I represent your views represent me, and I will ensure that it is held to the highest degree. Thank you.
And thank you, Tevin. And there we have it, the face and the voice apparently for PRO. So going forward, we have Mr. Bobby Smith, another candidate running for the same position. So over to you, Bobby.
All right, greetings, UWI Blackbirds, and good night. My name is Bobby Smith, the candidate for Guild Public Relations Officer for the academic year 2020-2023. Now, why should you rally with Bobby for Guild PRO? Simple. Experience. Being able to effectively champion the Guild Public Relations Office and working under pressure. I am a content creator of 4 years, a postgrad student, and public relations, being an aspect of marketing, is no short of my professional career. Time management and consistency. Having the productive mentality to and complete control over my numerous responsibilities with the flexibility to execute tasks on time, in between time, and every time. Industrious. Having worked on numerous projects, not only at the guild level, but for the Halls of Residence as well, namely Frank Worrell Hall Survival Guide, Castle on the Hill, 2021-2022, SFK Freshers Week, and SFK Calendar Week that concludes Saturday. Quality. having the ability to develop only high quality content media rather than subpar ones, simply by looking at other projects done for students, and my campaign on IG, Bobby Smith _ will verify this. In the recent Barbados election, I was essential on Tory Lane's communication and PR team. I was critical in the capture of media and strategic creation of content, which assisted in the city of Bridgetown victory. The highlight also can be found on my Instagram page at SmithBobby _ right? In addition, I also designed the Jamaica Independent 60 logo. Let me bring your attention to this. My plan focus around inclusivity and student engagement. Inclusivity, where the Guild will be accessible to both physically bodied students and also to the disabled student community. Student engagement, where content media will get the necessary traffic it needs to be successful as a means to promote partisanism. So my mandate tenets are as follows: to increase traffic for UWI campus-based clubs and society on social media and on campus, seeing that we're returning to a physical space. Greater collaboration with campus PRO, where the Guild PR committee will collaborate, will establish meaningful and committed relationship with UWI campus-based clubs and society PRO to assist with flyers, graphic design, or any content creation. We will launch also a Adobe Creative Summit where students will learn how to do graphic design, makeup application, how to take pictures and edit pictures in post, as well as vlogging. We will also launch a media advisory. So the aim is to alter the Guild current advisory to appeal to the disabled student committee and disabled student community on campus. So an audio and also a sign language version will also be implemented. And the sign language version will be co-piloted by the Barbados Council for the Disabled, where I spoke to Christopher Jones and they actually like the initiative. Also, we will launch a UWI Marketing Association where students will get the opportunity to gain practical business experience and to offer students a chance to develop leadership skills which differentiate them as outstanding candidates for employment. As well as we will continue the Guild PR current initiative, Less Venti, right? So Guild counselors will take over Instagram Live and TikTok and talk about their experiences at UWI and interact with freshman students on a personal level. Also, professionals will be invited to gauge the student audience and speak on matters related to them, such as, but not limited to, Dr. Ben, psychological counselor, to speak on mental health and student adjustment and university adjustment. Dr. Whitney Best, resident medical doctor, head of the health clinic, to speak on matters relating to health care and also the return thereof.
And thank you, Bobby. I'm really sorry to have to cut you, but you will have additional time to carry on your presentation going forward. And I look forward to actually asking you a few questions on some of the things you mentioned. So that wraps up group number 4. And finally, we have group 5, which comprises of the executive positions that are up for grabs after or for the elections. And first up, we have, apologies for the mispronunciation already. I think that's Azim Maraldo Boyne, Mr. Boyne. Can you please give me the correct pronunciation for your name, Mr. Boyne? Over to you.
It's Osaze.
Osaze, I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah. Okay, so good night, UWI Blackbirds. Before I continue, let me just apologize for any lack of my usual exuberance as I just exited a 3-hour lecture. And so in continuing, who am I? Firstly, I'm a student. I am a UWI Blackbird. I am the young man who 3 years ago left Trinidad and Tobago to come to Barbados to pursue a double major in economics and finance, but who on arrival realized that there's so much more to this university than the academics. I am that person who, from my first week on campus, was bombarded by the university, by the culture, by the regional integration, by the true essence of everything that takes place on this campus, and who then made the decision that, yes, I want to be a part of this. I want to truly embrace KVille culture. And since then, I've taken part in multiple activities. I've served on a number of executives. I've led a number of executives. And so I'm here today to present myself before you to become your next guild president. And, so without going into too much about my character, since this is just an introduction, one thing that I think is really important for someone who aims to represent a body or a group of persons is that, this person truly interacts with these persons and can relate to these persons on multiple fronts, because you can't aim to represent someone, or you can't know the needs of people you don't interact with or that you don't know. And so if that was the case to be made, that I don't do that, then I wouldn't be here. But here I am. And in being here, my intentions are simple. And as you may have seen in my campaign material, I intend to sort things out. And that acronym truly is beautiful, because all the student body really asks of the guild is one, genuine service, two, to create opportunities, real opportunities that increase their employability as they leave the university, real representation on the matters that affect them, and transparency in the running of the institution, in the running of the guild. And so as your president, this is the foundation, this is the bedrock upon which everything else is going to be built. This is the principles that should guide all the councillors and what I would always keep in mind in the running of the guild. And so going into my mandates, these are all going to be built off of this service, this representation, this transparency. And after that, anything can happen, because once you have the trust of the students, the guild is strengthened. And once the guild is strengthened, the university respects it more. And when the university respects the guild more, you can truly represent the students better. For me, as a leader, I implore you to cast your vote in my direction on the 15th and come out to more of the events, listen to all the presidents, listen to their mandates, and cast your votes for the right person on the 15th. Thank you.
And thank you, Osalze. I think that's it. No, I think you finally have it. And following Osalze, we have an apology from Mr. Carl Holder Leach. He will not be joining us tonight. So we will quickly move on to Mr. Willoughby. I think that's Nikhil Willoughby, who is a candidate for president. So Mr. Willoughby, as you unmute yourself. Mr. Willoughby, are you there?
Okay, hi, good night, everyone. Just now it was not allowing me to unmute, so thank you for allowing me. Good night, everyone. Protocol having been established. My name is Nikhil Willoughby, and I'm a proud student of the Faculty of Science and Technology. And I humbly stand here as your candidate for guild president. Now, I'm no stranger to positions of service and leadership at the KFO campus, as I've served wholeheartedly as your public relations officer over the past year. Now, being the immediate past public relations officer of the Barbados Students Association and Circle K International, and representing the KFO campus on the Barbados Youth Development Council, it is clear that my passion lies deeply within the service to you students of the KFO campus. Now, it is upon this backdrop that I've laid the roadmap before you students, one that with your help on March 15th, we will indeed make a reality. Now, I intend to bring principles of transformative leadership, which ensures that the guild is led effectively with accountability, transparency, and one that motivates and empowers counselors to effectively serve the students. With the introduction of the guild evaluation program and overall adherence and provision of constitutional reform and autonomy of the guild. Advocacy in action, which ensures that the students' voices are heard and the
advocacy for the return of their events, initiatives, the betterment of their student health services, better administrative assistance, and clarity on things like the Give Back program and other campus initiatives. Progressive policy that supports and promotes and defends the rights of students in instances of abuse, academic progression, health and safety, religious observances, and personal and professional development. Healthcare and welfare expansion, which will see partnerships with the health clinic to ensure the improvement of health conditions for those students who reside on halls and those coming to campus daily. In addition, the expansion of the welfare packages to include specific packages for our women and the introduction of the Farm to Fork program, which will see local farmers partner with the Guild to not only stock the pantry, but provide reduced prices for produce and goods for the entire student body. Now, more than academics, which will see the promotion of students and their businesses, allowing them opportunities to secure investments and other forms of assistance outside of their academic lives. Now, this includes internships and also sources of student employment. Now, a vote for NIC is a vote for transformative leadership, progressive policy, health and welfare development, and post-academic development. A vote for me is a vote for student-centered leadership. A vote for me is a vote for trust. A vote for NIC ensures that the Guild badge means more to the students because the students must and will mean more to the Guild. Last year, I brought my packages and I delivered them right to your door. Vote me as our next Guild president, and let's make our campus stronger with NIC. I thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Willoughby. As we move quickly along, I think we have Ms. Stephanie Pascal, who is running for vice president. Over to you, Stephanie.
Greetings, Blackbirds. My name is Stephanie Pascal, a third-year economics and mathematics major, and I'm vying for the position of vice president. I am from the most beautiful, the most picturesque island in the entire world, the nature island of the Caribbean, Dominica. I am a proud Dominican. I am a proud Warriorite. While I would have moved off campus in my third year, maroon and gold runs through my veins forever and ever. And above all, I am a proud Blackbird. Why you should vote for me? I wish to sow the seeds of trust back into the Guild. I want to strengthen the relationship between the associations and the Guild. I want to enhance the experience of all clubs and societies, elevate the transparency of the Guild, deepen the level of democracy and integrity showcased by the Guild Council, and above all, I want to serve the needs of current and future Blackbirds. Throughout this evening, I wish to affirm that not only am I the only person vying for vice president, but I am the best person vying for vice president. Good luck to all the candidates, and I really hope that this is a fruitful discourse and we have a good conversation.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. And this really wraps up our introductory segment. I would like to thank all of the candidates thus far for their lovely introductions and really letting the audience know who you are. So as we quickly move on, I have now a following segment where I will be asking the various representatives, as I mentioned previously, general and specific questions. Unfortunately, regarding the first aspect of Group 1, we only have, I believe, Mikhail left. So this would be the candidate for the Faculty of Sports. So as you unmute yourself, sir, I will ask you your first question. And that question is, provide some details on how you will adequately represent the interests of all members of your faculty. I will repeat. Provide some details on how you will adequately represent the interests of all members of your faculty.
All right, thank you for that question. Firstly, in one of my mandates, I would like to implement something called the supermarket grant, where we will look at particular students, not particular students, basically the entire faculty, whoever applies, we will consider the situation and basically give a grant each month for students at a named supermarket that will be named soon. I already went out and I did some homework, built some partnerships with a very popular supermarket, because as students it is difficult to go out there, you know, on your own, especially the non-nationals. So I think that's a major mandate that people would gravitate towards, you know, being able to at least get a little ease up 1 month with food. So that's something I think is that I have to offer. Yeah.
All right, and thank you so much for that response. A following question. One of the main concerns of students is the practical experience across disciplines such as jobs and internships. What are your plans to allow such to students in your faculty? So a question on internships and jobs prior or rather after university.
Okay, so one of the other initiatives that I would like to explore would be for students to actually work with our teams, our actual Blackbird teams. So it's kind of like a mentorship. So where the physiotherapist could possibly, once he is going to meet, we could assign particular students to go with him so they would learn a little bit about massage therapy. We have coaches who go to different matches, a cricket coach, you know, students could tag along to a training session. They could learn, you know, actually interact, so they get in that hands-on experience for those who would be interested in coaching, those who would be interested in the physiotherapy aspect. In terms of internships, that is something that has been on pause for a while because, well, due to the pandemic, etc. But I guess with everything phasing out, you know, establishments would be open to getting students to come around. So it's now up to me, if elected, to go out there and bridge that gap and ensure that the students of my faculty are able to get out there and secure jobs and secure hands-on experience to boost the resume and just follow the dreams and become and be the best that they could, basically.
And interestingly, you mentioned the pandemic, and a follow-up question here is the COVID-19 pandemic has prevented your students from having physical practice in their various fields. What are your plans to lobby for the return of the physical component? So a question regarding the inability to train due to COVID and your plans going forward to really address that matter.
Well, to be quite honest, the lobbying start and I'm not even in office and the lobbying is going on. From being on the current exec, like it's kind of more or less us setting a foundation for the upcoming year. The university is, you know, trying to cover all aspects of being able to get things flowing again. So I guess as they told us, we know with patience everything would come out. However, I personally would try to accommodate where if a couple students want to, you know, have a scrimmage, if they come to me and say that they want to play, they want to run football, they want to have a sweat, they want to have a little hockey match, whatever, I am willing to source a venue to say that, okay, even if it's off campus, that they could go out there and keep fit or whatever the case is. This past year was really tough for all athletes, from not being able to be in the physical realm and, you know, enjoying what you do best. So I would say a big part of that as well is also trying to encourage the gym to be reopened. So even if they don't have the actual sport, they could be able to keep fit and to, you know, to just keep that mentality of just going forward and just waiting and riding it out and staying strong. So that's the best I can do right now.
And thank you for that. So your final question. Persons oftentimes confuse the roles of sports rep and GCC. What is the difference in the roles provided to the student body?
Thank you for that question. The GCC's job is to to basically encourage sports across campus holistically, more or less. So everything, all students who may be a part of other faculties, you know, the Faculty of Sport will not have the entire student athlete population. So the GCC's job is to more or less to reach out to those persons from each faculty and get them involved, get the entire student body involved. The sports faculty rep is responsible for the academic bridge between the Academy of Sport, the students, and well, admin. So that is the difference there. One is for academic purposes. Yes, we are the Faculty of Sport, but just like every other faculty, our main goal is to ensure that our students are treated fairly academically first before we look to lobby for sport. But both positions have a lot of similarities, and they can be fused more or less. So it's not that far apart, but at the same time, it's on two different spectrums, if you understand. So yeah, but it can be, one person could do both duties easily.
All right, thank you so much for that. And thank you for that warm up. And ladies and gentlemen, that has been your candidate for the Faculty of Sport. So I think you could be excused now, McKeel. Now, following McKeel, we have questions and general questions for the hall chairs. And I think there are more than one individual, or there's multiple individuals rather present, who can participate in this aspect. So just to reiterate, I will pose the question generally, and if you wish to respond, you can respond, and let's again just keep it quite respectful. So those various individuals can unmute themselves as well as open their cameras. And the first question that I will pose to all of you would be, the incumbent hall chairpersons have made great efforts to successfully secure welfare packages and services for their residents. What measures do you have in place to ensure this will this will continue? So a question regarding the continuation of the welfare packages for residents on halls. And I guess I will begin with Mr. Wilson. You were the first to open your camera. So Mr. Wilson, do you want to start with that one?
Yes, that's no problem. Good night again, everyone. I think welfare is an important initiative that councils in the past have prioritized, and especially now during the COVID-19 pandemic, welfare in a number of various ways is very important to ensure that students feel comfortable in the space that they live in. So what I plan to do with respect to welfare, it's in one of my mandates, reaching out to the Alumni Association, creating a formalized body surrounding the Frank Worrell Hall alumni. So therefore we could tap into their resources, tap into their links per se, and really create the avenue for more resources, whether that be financial, whether that be grocery resources or otherwise. We want to create that avenue to kill two birds with one stone, tap into our alumni relations, and also cater to the welfare needs of the resident population. Because now more than ever, as I reiterated before, welfare is an important initiative to really ensure that students can maximize their fullest potential, especially living on their own in halls. So that's really my plan, to deal with the welfare initiatives and as well to build on the progress that past councils have made, especially with the food pantry and stuff like that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wilson, for that answer. And I will hand over now to the other Daniel. Do you want to respond to the question, a question regarding the welfare aspect for residents on halls and what measures you have to continue that practice?
Okay, good night, and thank you for that question, Mr. Moderator. I'm a person, I'm really big on welfare. A lot of persons blur the lines between the welfare officer and other councillors' ability to give welfare to the hall. When I ran for the deputy hall position, I had welfare initiatives, and one of my main initiatives this time around is a welfare initiative, because for me, my two main things of being a student leader or going up for the position of the hall chairperson is welfare and advocacy. That initiative I'm speaking about is the Frank Helps initiative, where I noted that we reach out to alumni, even my family and friends to commit to the hall, just to ensure that we have quote unquote deeper pockets to help out the residents of the Sir Frank Wall Hall, because at times residents may really need, you understand? And we want to be able to help them whenever they need. Apart from that, just constant relations with the persons on the guild. We know of instances where the UCC gave merchandise to the halls. That will continue because, working on the guild and as councillors on the guild, we share with each other. So I feel like with those connections with the guild members and with my ability to reach out to more alumni, more of my family, my friends, that is my holistic view on continued welfare for the Frank Wall Hall.
And thank you so much for that. Now, Emily, I know you're running on a pause, but I think it's a very important question for you as well. And I really invite you to respond. So again, a question on welfare and the residents on halls. Over to you.
It is rather interesting question, and I thank you for that. And just extending on what...
We're not hearing you very well.
Sorry. Hearing me now?
Yes, go right ahead.
All right. I was saying, thank you for that interesting question. And extending on what my colleagues have said, I must admit that a lot of times our residents are going through some hard times. So welfare is indeed important. So in terms of keeping the link with the guild, seeing that they do have a pantry, that is extremely important. And as Shawayne mentioned, the UCC also has an initiative ongoing, and I'm sure the current UCC that is running will continue to carry on that initiative. And this year, our Sherlock Hall launched our alumni initiative, and we only asked them for videos. And I was appalled by the number of persons who actually wanted to contribute more. So as a leader, as Sherlock's Hall chairwoman, keeping in contact and networking with this alumni can allow us to get as much as possible in terms of welfare for the residents, because I'm sure they will be willing and ready and to help in any way possible.
All right, thank you for those very informative responses to that question. Now, again, we're still in the general sections questions, so each one of you would have a chance to respond. And the following question I have here: what measures should be utilized to ensure that there is an improvement in the physical, mental, and medical safety of residents on halls? So really a question of mental health, physical health, and safety for the residents on halls. So again, we will begin with Mr. Wilson. Over to you.
So the question relates to mental, physical, and what's the other? Sorry?
Safety.
Mental, physical, and safety. I think there is a number of initiatives that can be executed, that can be actualized with regards to mental health. And I think, namely, it would be keeping in touch with the resident population. As a council, your responsibility is not only to lead from the top, but to ensure that you stay connected with those residents on the ground, to ensure that you're not only representing your self-aggrandizement, your vision for the whole, but that you ensure that you continue to speak and work for residents. And I think in speaking with residents, in building relationships with them, you get a better grasp of where they are at mentally. Leadership is all about being genuine. And I think having close relationships with them and working closely with the welfare officers on the council, you can get a better grasp of how to really improve the mental states of residents and ways in which the council as a body could action upon that. With respect to the physical safety of persons residents on hold, one of my mandates would be to ensure that we have a landscape reinvigoration and relighting program so that many areas that have gone dark around the Frank Wall Hall can be relit, so that residents no longer have to kick the big toe while trying to wash or drop in a big hole. we have to ensure that residents' safety in all instances, in all regards and respects are met. And I think with this relighting and landscape reinvigoration project, this mandate, this would help residents to really feel more comfortable in their space and feel more comfortable to traverse around this illustrious Frank Worrell Hall. And I think overall, just so that we ensure we keep ears on the ground, I think overall we have to be a council that listens. We have to be hall chairpersons that really stay in touch and stay grounded in our commitment to serve. But most of all, we have to stay accountable to the needs of the resident population in order for us to be successful. And I think once we do all those things, we'll be able to fulfill their greatest needs and desires.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. And there we have it. You will not be falling into any large holes under Mr. Wilson's candidacy or presidency. So, but following up to that question, Mr. The other Daniel, do you want to have a response to that? A question on mental health, the physical health, as well as the safety of residents on your hall?
Yes, please. Thank you for that question. I'll take the question in part. So let's start with mental health. I do believe a lot of mental strain is placed on our residents as we now live in a COVID environment. Oftentimes, as you know, well, as you may know, if you don't know, Frank Worrell Hall is 10 different blocks. You understand? So every person is kind of in their room on their blocks. With the face-to-face environment coming up, what that will do is it will encourage more activities to happen on halls. That in itself will allow individuals to come out of their rooms and have that breath of fresh air, So that in itself will decrease the mental strain on our residents. We also have initiatives such as welfare initiatives, and so that we can work, that I personally intend to work in close relation with the welfare officer, because as I said, welfare is a big thing for me. So just those, even like sports days, just to help decrease the strain on the residents of the hall, because and even UE students in general, we're all going to school is hard, and we often need those activities to help take down our stress levels. So that's mental health. The next one is health in general. What I am aware of is that the resident assistant, he or she at the time will be well versed in first aid. What I was just formulating things that we can do for the incoming residents and residents of the entire hall is have training sessions, you understand? Just to enlighten them on procedures and so. Reaching out to the persons in authority, such as Dr. Bess, OSS, the security guards, Miss Bryan, just to have conversations, be it in a physical setting or even over Zoom, you understand? Just to ensure that the residents are okay. And the last one, physical health, and just the general health of the hall. We need to be cognizant of the fact that, hey, we are our brother's keeper, you understand? The motto of the hall says, no you, no me, but we. We have to look out for each other and just be each other's backbone in that sense, because at the end of the day, we're here for 3-4 months, you understand? So just to encourage each other and push each other along, and I think we'll be fine as a whole.
Thank you so much for that. And just a reminder that we can possibly keep these responses 1.5 minutes long. So as we move on, I would want, as well as Ms. Emily, to respond to that question quickly, but I would also give her an individual question, and then I will move to specific questions to the two Daniels. So Emily, over to you, a question on the mental health, physical health, and safety of residents on your hall.
Okay, thank you for that question. I'm sure we all know that mental health is extremely important. And what I already love is that Sherlock is a family. On this hall, no man is an island and no man stands alone. We're in it together, nobody suffers alone. And even just small initiatives like our Pillow Talks, where we're able to open and be comfortable around each other so we know what triggers each person is just something that I really love about this hall. It's not something that is on my shoulders as a hall chairperson, but it's just an all-rounding activity that us as Sherlock residents have. In terms of physical health, I'm thinking of it in terms of the pandemic, the mask wearing, sanitizing. We have already had breakout on halls, but it was contained. And this was contained with the help of the hall chairpersons, and that is my responsibility to ensure that the university guidelines are being followed, and that at the end of the day, Sherlock Hall will be known for the hall that wear their mask and are taking safety into their own hands on a personal and a macro level. And in terms of the overall infrastructure, as a law student, I know that even a spill of water on the floor is a tort waiting to happen. So we do not tolerate foolishness, basically. We have to report it, and there's a chain of command, maintenance rep, hall chairperson, in which I contact the hall's administration, and that issue will be fixed. So that is how we go about it.
Thank you so very much for that. And interestingly enough, you mentioned Sherlock being a family, and we have a question that really points to whether halls are nuclear families or extended families, and I'll explain. The question says, as a result of the pandemic, many persons on halls have been complaining about cross-hall visitation and physical interactions between the halls. How do you plan to lobby for this benefit to be rectified for students living on hall? And that question is for you, Emily, again.
Thank you, and that's an interesting question, because last week we had our SFK Halls Week, which I, as a CAC, was heading and planning, and the moot was the COVID-19 pandemic has become superfluous. A cross-hall visitation should be reinstated. This is something we have been thinking about. The major issue where this is concerned is that we're not able to experience the entirety of diversity that exists on the K-Ville campus. But I feel like on Sherlock, we are making strides. We have so many islands on Sherlock Hall, and to interact with Frank and Keith, there are ways we can go about that outside of hall activities, speaking through study groups on campus. But this is something that we would definitely have to think about for the year to come, because I mean, classes going back to face-to-face, the country is open, we're thinking about UEVAL. So this is something that we would definitely have to advocate on as hall chairpersons in our meetings with halls admin, because we would love to go back to Frank and say, hi, bestie, and just have a little conversation with somebody who's not a resident of Sherlock. So that is what we're planning.
And thank you so much for that, Emily. So this aspect here, there are specific questions directed towards the two candidates who are vying for Frank Worrell Hall rep. And the first question I will pose to Daniel, Mr. Wilson. What leadership experience can aid you in being the best suited candidate for the Frank Worrell Hall chairperson? So a question of leadership.
Thank you so much for that question, Mr. Bruce. I believe that I carry a wealth of experience on my back that would really aid me to execute the roles and responsibilities of hall chairperson. Most recently on the TTSA, I held the portfolio of events officer. Prior to that, I have sat on the National Association of Student Councils in Trinidad and Tobago, where we executed a number of events surrounding topical issues like anti-bullying, topical issues like mental health. And on that board, I would have had to partner with various ministers within the government of Trinidad and Tobago to really execute initiatives, execute forum discussions and panel discussions around the island. I also was the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Youth Ambassadors Program, and that really is an organization that seeks to encourage youth advocacy in a number of different spheres. I sit on the Executive Council of the Caribbean Visionary Educators, and that is an organization headed by Dr. Freddie James, a UWI St. Augustine lecturer. where we seek to reinvent and re-envision how we go forward, moving a Caribbean education, creating a more dynamic and diverse methods of pedagogy and teaching for the region. And these are just some of the organizations that I would have represented, that I hold leadership within. And I believe that leadership in any sense is an asset to proper representation. And I believe that with my experience in the past, my experience presently, and with my experience in finally being the youth parliamentarian or youth representative for the area of Bethel, Mount Irvin back in Tobago, it has really allowed me to meet and see people on a more genuine and a more real level, to connect with persons, to see their needs, to understand them. And I believe leadership is more about understanding people more than just being in a position. I think once we are able to understand people and separate that from the position itself, we are better able to execute our duty. So these are just some of the leadership roles that I would have held in the past, and you know how they would aid me in fulfilling the roles and responsibilities of all chairs.
And thank you for that, Mr. Wilson. Now, the other Daniel, you've heard your comrades' leadership experience, and for an interior, I would say it's quite vast. How do you compare? What is your response to the question of leadership and experience in the candidacy for the Frank Burrell Hall chairperson? Over to you, sir.
Good. You guys hearing me? Sorry about that. My AirPods died.
Hearing you loud and clear.
If you would permit me, I wanted to jump in on the question you asked Emily in terms of the advocacy for face-to-face interaction, because that speaks directly to one of my mandates. So if you'd permit me to go ahead on that, then I could come back to the question.
Go right ahead.
Okay, so in terms of the mandate that I have, Ori face-to-face, when formulating mandates for the position, I said, I remember Ms. Bryan, she asked me what can be done to bring back that Hall's life and give persons that university experience. And I know one thing that is often spoken about is that interaction between halls. So I decided to formulate that mandate, and I went back to Ms. Bryan and I said, hey, Ms. Bryan, let's do this. Let's open up, because we're going back face to face. Granted that we don't know how COVID will go, we don't know if there'll be another variant or so, but in the event that it doesn't spike again and there isn't another variant, I can promise you that is something that will happen. So that is something we can look forward to speaking about when I'm elected as Hall chairperson, Emily. Speaking about answering the question you posed about leadership, I can go and I can say before UWI, I was a coach of my football team. I am a coach of my football team, and I can give you a long rundown of what I did before UWI. But in terms of this position itself, I strongly believe that what makes me the best person for this position or gives me that leadership edge is my experience on halls. I often tell individuals that you don't water down having experience, because on halls, you have to be in the whole sphere of things. You have to be a good leader, and also you have to have experience about that whole culture. So that is where my leadership comes in. I currently serve as a deputy hall chair. I have experience on the council. So as that's just the entirety of it for me, just the experience of working with the council and working along with halls.
Thank you so much. And it seems that Mr. Wilson has a rebuttal, I assume. His hand is up. So over to you.
Yes, please. I just wanted to touch on the point of experience. I think that while experience is extremely important, especially in executing the roles and responsibilities of such a esteemed office, we can have experience doing great, and we can have experience in not doing so well. And I think it's what we choose to do with that experience and how we plan to reshape and reinvent our experiences to meet our current circumstances. So while I believe Hall's culture is extremely important, especially in revitalizing and reestablishing a new Frank World Hall culture, we have to figure out the ways in which we could reinvent culture, because culture will never be the same again. So whereas your experiences 2 or 3 years ago may still be pivotal in the way we plan to shape forthcoming years, I think it's all about innovation. I think while experience is an asset, experience must be matched with execution and experience in execution. And we should focus more about experience in terms of sharing that experience. If we want to talk about no you, no me, but we, how can we transcend that experience? How can you better pass on those experiences to younger people like me, first year students like me, who are aspirants of such high office? So I think the question of experience is a very trivial one in some circumstances, and it should be matched with experience and execution rather than just plain old experience.
Well, thank you so much for that contribution and rebuttal. Well placed. And interestingly enough, I think it's a good segue into the follow-up question. And it really speaks to previous leadership on halls and some of their successes, whether good or bad. And it really asks specifically, what initiatives that have been successful thus far, or what initiatives in general, would you wish to continue and why? So we'll start with you again, Mr. Wilson. Can you lower your hand so I can ensure that it's not an old one? So yeah, it's a question of initiatives and which you would continue and why.
So I think there are a number of initiatives that I would want to continue here on Frank World Hall, namely things like the Inter-Frank public speaking competition, things like professional development, workshops. I want to continue the works of expanding the Frank World Hall alumni. And I think all of these topical issues, all of these mandates, these initiatives play into overall student development and student recognition and exposure. When we talk about Frank World Hall, we don't want it to be like a hall that is just plain, bland, and boring. We want a hall, that whole life that is reflective of our vibrant and boisterous personalities. We want a hall that is diverse. We want a hall that is able to cater to every single resident in a different way. And I think that some of the initiatives that this council has instituted, like the public speaking competitions and stuff like that, really bring out the talent and bring out the vigor of our people here on Frank. So these are just some of the initiatives that I would like to continue, as well as welfare initiatives such as the pantry, stuff like that. We want to ensure that students have a holistic experience here on Frank. And obviously, I think that the past council has done well to really create that level of holistic student living. So those are some of the things that I would want to itemize during my term to bring back.
And yourself, Mr. Daniel, a question of what are the initiatives that you would wish to continue?
Thank you for that question. Mr. Wilson touched on some of those initiatives. I could definitely speak on the initiatives done by this executive since I sit on the executive. One main initiative that I really believe should and will continue for Frank's entirety going forward is the availability of scholarships to our students. We would want to offer, and if not more, increase the amount of money towards those scholarships. Another one is that of the Frank Choir. This year we launched a Frank Choir just to continue that so that residents can come forward and show their talents in singing and instrument playing. And so Mr. Daniel spoke about the debating. That is one that should definitely continue. There's one called Frank Talks. It's our availability to give residents the platform to come and speak on pressing issues that surround us. Because, and I feel like as hall chair, together with the council, we should give residents that platform. So just Yeah, that will be it for me.
Apologies. All right. Thank you all for your contributions thus far. That really wraps up the segment regarding the candidates for Hall. So thank you again, the Daniels and Emily. So following that section, we will have session 3, or rather part group 3, which comprises of the chairpersons. And I think we only have a Mr. Paul Miller tonight, who is vying for the union committee chairperson. So Paul, if you're there, can you open your mic as well as your camera? And I have a couple questions for you. There you are. So the first question to you, Paul. The current union committee chairperson has successfully secured and maintained relationships with corporate Barbados as it relates to sponsorship. Do you have any plans to maintain and more specifically enhance such relationships? So a question regarding the relationships between your office and the private sector in Barbados and expanding those relationships as it relates to sponsorship.
All right, thank you, Mr. Moderator, for that question. Well, I would have stated that I would like to continue this said initiative here. Basically, I would love to continue this initiative, and if elected, I would have a conversation with the current UCC, getting more information about his relationship with said persons who are giving the scholarship. And of course, I would like to expand that and go more in depth and go to more companies and find various scholarships that can help the Guild of Students here at UWI-Cayville. Not only getting sponsorships from corporate Barbados, but a lot of different private entities, public entities that will help us here. The UE student, the Cayville, the Blackbirds at Cayville. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that response. And your second and final question, this relates to what I would say is an ongoing issue from since I was undergrad, but either way, the spirit of the Guild Union needs to be revitalized. Do you have any mandates in place to re-vitalize the Cayville spirit within the student union?
Thank you for that question. Currently, I went out looking, networking with different bar owners here in Barbados. I recently got a hold of Mr. John English, the owner of the Influence Bar. I actually got him to follow me on Instagram and told him that from time to time, I will be reaching out to him for advice, tips and ways to really revamp and rebuild the Guild's Bar, which is a part of the Guilds Union. I think that reopening the bar and having a nice beer line, something similar to what we have down the road, GT, we can bring it here at the UWI-Cayville campus. And I think it's very important for me to lobby with the Office of Student Services and get information to them as it regards to having a vibe here at UWI-Cayville, because I think it's important for students to come out on a Thursday night or Friday night to just relax and de-stress, because we know that university life is hard and we need one of those days to just relax. So getting a line here at the UWI-Cayville campus with utilizing the bar is very, very important.
And thank you so much for that, Mr. Miller. And I think after 2 years of lockdown and curfews, we can certainly use a vibe again. So we look forward to the successes in that direction. So that aspect wraps up the chairpersons. And now I will begin to reintroduce the International Affairs Committee chairpersons candidates. And those would be Ms. Tiffany Pierre, Afinidi Williams. So as you unmute your mics and open your cameras, I will begin to pose the questions, the specific questions that I have for you. And we have Ms. Williams already. So I will start with her since she was first out of the gate. So the first question for you, Ms. Williams, what experiences or qualities do you possess that make you a well-suited candidate for the offices of IAC? So a question again of experience and qualities for the IAC candidacy. Over to you.
Given that I myself considered as an international student, I do believe that the experiences I have in terms of coming from a country that is not termed or deemed regional, I must say that my qualities are that I'm determined, that I have drive. I also would have been I would have been okay. So my experience is that I'm also an international student, and while I do not burn out or was not a part of many student leadership programs, I would have offered my time and service as volunteering and to ensure that students and other people do have resources and adequate resources and do have adequate resources to ensure that their stay and their presence and whatever they need to accomplish for their goals, that they do have these things. In addition to that, my being a master's student and a student and studying at the University of Guyana, I would have allowed myself to hold positions such as assistant of the communication studies department, where I had to ensure that students have all the resources for their classrooms and be the liaison for students to teachers or to lecturers to ensure that whatever issues they have with respect to content being delivered, and also to respect the content being delivered and how they understand the different equipment that are to be used within the communications department, because we also would have had a radio station, and all equipment needed to be used and maintained in a certain way. So being that I hold that responsibility, I think that it will help me here as the International Affairs Committee chairperson to ensure that the international students do have the resources and are a part of opportunities and activities that will foster their personal growth, professional development, and also help them with other skills as students, and also when they would have graduated from this institution.
Thank you so much, Ms. Williams. And again, a quick reminder, 1 minute and 30 seconds for these rounds. So similar question to you, Tiffany. What experience and qualities do you bring as a candidate that makes you a well-suited individual for the IAC? Over to you.
Thank you very much for that question, Mr. Moderator. And I do agree with Finidi in the aspect of being a regional student yourself. You would want to feel comfortable in a new environment. I also think, some of my experiences being a Girl Guide has developed me holistically. Regional camps, international camps has afforded me the opportunity to network properly. And I think being able to network is a very important skill when it comes to being an International Affairs Committee chairperson. Also, being a member of the OECS Youth Advisory Network has helped me to develop maximum potential when it comes to leadership skills. I am very friendly, I'm a people person, and I really, really love volunteering and helping people. And I think all of these experiences is what pushes me and drives me to this position and will help me when it comes to being the best person for this position. Thank you.
And thank you, Tiffany, for that one. And since you're already here, I will start with you with the follow-up question. And this question really speaks to the relationship between the international students and the regional students. And the question really asks, how do you plan to integrate the two while maintaining the uniqueness of each culture and national identity? So again, a question as it relates to the international students and the regional students, blending the two and really maintaining the uniqueness at the same time. So a very complicated balancing out there.
Thank you so much for that question. As stated in my mandate, I plan to expose the regional students to international opportunities and also to expose those international students to the diversity of our regional culture. I think that diversity is a very important aspect when it comes to exposing persons and really mixing and mingling with everybody on campus. And since we're going to be outside again, I think that through activities such as the cultural fair and the IAC Leadership Gala, persons would have the opportunity to feel comfortable while experiencing and while portraying their diversity, whether it be culture, food, dance, etc. I don't think it would be tedious. I think that it would be very interesting actually to be in this position to help persons feel comfortable enough in their own culture and in their own skin on a whole. Thank you.
And thank you, Tiffany, for that response. And Fanidi, you said you are an international or would be considered an international student at the University of West Indies. What is your response to that question? Really, again, blending the two regional and international students, but yet still maintaining their unique presence and culture. Over to you.
Well, firstly, thank you again. I do believe that for you to have uniqueness, I think both international students and regional students must be able to share their culture and to understand where each other are coming from. So how will I achieve that? I will ensure, as much as we have a lot of cultural activities here on the University of West Indies campus, I will allow students to also another exchange program where they are able to learn of each other's culture and they're able to exchange what they think, would be not viable, but what they think would be useful for others to know about, and also to look at their language and to understand the different languages and different identities that come out of the Caribbean and also from international students. As an international student here on campus, as much as I'm an international student, I can also identify with regional students because I come from a country that have the similar history and background as the Caribbean countries. So it isn't as though I am entirely unaware of what the Caribbean country holds, but I'm also aware of what the Caribbean country is about and the regional community. But as if I were a student who is coming from another, in terms of a Western country, I would want them to be able to understand both cultures and have regional students understand both cultures of the Western student. Thank you.
And thank you so much for that. Now, we're in a period of innovation. We keep hearing about, we're living in a COVID period and they need to innovate and the need for change. And this question, I think, is really within that context. So the final question for the candidates vying for IAC, the question really asks, do you have any innovative and fresh ideas to add to the spirit of the IAC? So a question about innovation and fresh ideas regarding the IAC, because I'm sure we have several candidates over the years who said they're going to do this and have that, but what do you bring to the table now that is fresh and innovative to this office? Tiffany, I'll start with you.
Thank you very much. Honestly, I think what what activity I could think of that's innovative is really bonding with international universities and international organizations. I think that most times we often think that because we're in the Caribbean or in the region, most people tend to think that we should just stick there. But I think when we expand our diversity, when we expand the different opportunities that students on the campus can get, or students at the university can get, I think we would reach places. And once appointed as the IAC chair, I will definitely, and I promise that I would network with those organizations and those universities to grant my Blackbirds that experience. So let's all climb tiers with pay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. And over to you, Ms. Williams. Final question.
What my innovative idea would be is that I, as the International Affairs Committee chairperson, I also want to ensure that international students and regional students who do meet the needs of students here in the Caribbean, which not university students alone, but other students of different institutions from nursery schools to secondary schools. And this innovative idea would be to have a literacy program, because I'm aware of how the pandemic would have affected every sector and every area within economies. So the literacy program is to ensure that students build and learn the importance of reading, of just reading in general, before they move on to digital literacy. And as we know, we're currently in a digital age where everything is digitalized. And I want to ensure that they understand the importance of reading first, then to get into digital literacy, where we will be able to teach them how to effectively use digital technologies and the concept using digital technologies and so on. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Williams and Ms. Pierre, your two candidates for the IAC. And that really concludes that aspect or group as we move on. So now we move into the officers, group number 4, and I invite Mr. Cole and Mr. Smith to unmute their mics as well as their cameras. And I will begin to pose the questions. There they are, Mr. Cole and Mr. Smith. So the general questions, I will pose my first question to Mr. Cole. What is your understanding of the role of a public relations officer versus that of a publications committee chairperson? So a question regarding the differentiations between the two roles.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I believe that is an absolutely fantastic question, because I believe that it is a misconception commonly shared by many that the public relations officer and the publications committee chairperson are interchangeably. And while I believe that they do share some similar roles, they have vastly different authorities as well as ideas in which they would drive or push their committee in achieving the goal. So in my opinion, the goal of the public relations officer is clearly one that is responsible for not only the image of the Guild of Students between us and, well, counselors, executive members, and officers to the students, but to the image of the Guild of Students to those outside of the UWI-KFL campus. So when, for instance, I'll give an example. When there is events or holidays, or there are so many different activities that are happening that the UWI is involved in Barbados, and even regionally through our many campuses, the aim of the public relations officer is one that is not only one to bolster the identity of Blackbirds, but one that is to show those outside of KFL what the UWI is about, as compared to the publications committee chairperson, who is, I believe, responsible for more so the domestic aspect of the connection between the Guild of Students and UWI Blackbirds. So for instance, I would say that the Publications Committee chairperson is one who is responsible, or it would fall under his department to ensure that we get what we need to get to Blackbirds whenever possible. I think a fantastic initiative would have been the Cave newspaper, which has been something that has been running since I've been a member of the UWI KFL campus, and just getting that update, the freshers guide, the updates between just about what's going on campus, but from the perspective of students and not so what's generally happening on campus. I always thought that was a fantastic idea, because not only does it give us the opportunity to connect to Blackbirds in that way, it also gives Blackbirds the opportunity to let their voice be heard and be involved, and to shape our reality of what it means to be a Blackbird.
And thank you so much for that, Tevin. Now, I will throw a challenge out to you, Mr. Smith. Can you add anything to what Tevin said that was not already said to the question regarding the difference between the Publications Committee chairperson and the Public Relations Officer? So over to you, Mr. Smith.
Sure, thank you for that question. All right, so the Public Relation Officer is basically responsible, it's basically the liaison officer when it comes to information and it comes to informing the student, keeping the student population informed. So they release advertisement promotion. They are basically versed in that discipline to ensure that students not only be aware, but also informed in the whole processing of the guild, right? They ensure that the students on a whole is engaged in guild student affairs. They ensure that if they are the first respondents when it comes to adjusting the brand or supporting the brand or defending the brand on any fronts, whether that's social media or on a physical scale. Regarding publication chairperson, they basically responsible for any paraphernalia that be e-magazine, as was said, the magazine, the signpost, any newsletter, brochure, pamphlet, and they also is a deputy, well, should be by constitution, should be a deputy. The publication chairperson, the PRO is also a deputy, the publication chairperson is a deputy, is an assistant of the PRO. So they work or in collaboration to ensure that information is disseminated, information is easily evaluated and comprehended to the student body.
And thank you so very much for that. I'm definitely a lot clearer between the difference between the two. Now, this is really two questions that I will pull into one, as we're really running out of time. But the Guild of Students has undergone extensive rebranding. Are you aware of this rebranding, and can you speak to its success? And as a follow-up, what plans do you have to further rebrand the image of the Guild? So a question regarding the branding of the Guild. Do you think the branding of the Guild so far has been successful? And what plans do you have as a candidate for the PRO to improve on where they currently are as it relates to this aspect? And I'll start with you, Mr. Smith.
Sure, thank you for that question. We have seen the events committee rebrand their logo. We have seen where the IACC also host a logo design competition for their rebranding for their logo. We have seen where the PR committee launched their new logo, because in retrospect, the PR committee didn't really have a particular logo, so they now have a logo to represent their image, right? We have seen a lot of interesting initiatives that comes out of all these three, right? And to further add to that, basically what I want to do where information is concerned, I want to ensure that I alter the Guild media advisory. So the media advisory, basically a press release from the Guild that they normally used to communicate information to the student population, right? So I want to alter that media advisory to create two additions, basically. So you will have a visual and you will have a visual and a audio one, basically. So the visual one, you will hear someone basically reading what's on the written advisory, and the audio one, the audio one, you will have someone reading what's on the sign advisory, and the visual one, you will have someone signing and also communicating what's on the written advisory. Mark you that the information will be seamless right across the two versions, right? And the Barbados Council for the Disabled will also play a key role, because I spoke to Mr. Jones and he also led the initiative. So they will play a key role in that aspect to get their members to assist with the signing. So that is basically to ensure that we gauge the different type of learners on campus, because students learn differently. You have auditory learners, you have visual learners, and you have verbal learners. So as well as to offer a more inclusion when it comes to the student disabled community, to get them more involved in the Guild Student Affair, because by right, they're a student too. And if you should you should reflect on last semester, not many events were directed to them regarding participation. So what I plan to do, many events regarding participation, because they are paying their miscellaneous fee too, so they should have a say of what goes on in the guild, right? All of us should have a say. And the aim going forward is to ensure that the guild is more inclusive, so that we can not only attract or not only try to engage with physical body students, but also the student disabled community on campus, so that they too can have a prolific experience when it comes to being a student, and so that they too can also develop or also, basically hone in on the networking skills available and the channels available. So that's one thing that I really plan to do where that is concerned. And as well as to
apologies, Mr. Smith. Thank you so much for that contribution. Now, Tevin, it's time for you to have your say on what you would do regarding improving the branding of the guild, and what are your opinions of what has been done thus far?
Most definitely. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So firstly, I think that it would be disingenuous to say that the rebranding of the guild has been, in my opinion, a fantastic success, because before, I am somebody who likes to look into the history of things a lot. So I would have actually gone back into the history of the guild and its branding probably about 3 to 4 years before I came into to UWI. And seeing what the branding of the guild has become now, I think is such a fantastic thing, because without a doubt, I could say when I see a flyer or when I see a particular advertisement or a video, I say, yeah, that's my guild right here, for sure. And that's definitely something that I think has been great, and that's something that I definitely will continue to improve, as I feel that the guild has been making incredible efforts to ensure that even when they leave, there will be a lot of assets and resources available to us, the incoming guild, to continue that progress. In terms of how I plan to continue that progression, I definitely believe that Bobby Great brought up a fantastic point in accessibility is a key to appealing to so much more inclusivity on the UWI Capel campus. That is something that I have been looking into extensively in terms of my mandates, and that is to be reliable and to unify in a sense, by ensuring that every Capel Blackbird is accounted for in their various disabilities or able-bodiedness, that everyone has the capacity to be able to benefit from all the information that is shared on the UWI Capel campus. Another way in which I believe that I could enhance the branding of the UWI Capel Guild of Students is by utilizing, which is the U in trust, which is from my mandates, and as the utilization of all the Guild's resources to my disposal. That includes the Guild's website as well as the YouTube channel. The Guild so far has had so many segments that have been fantastic in bringing to light, a lot of the talent and a lot of the the culture and the just uniqueness of the UWI Capable Blackbirds, that I believe that we are missing the opportunity to appeal to people in so many ways. There's not going to be a place that you could turn where you don't see the Guild of Students being, whether that be YouTube, whether that be TikTok, whether that be on all the social media platforms, the website, audiobooks. That is something that I believe that I want to bring together to unify, to ensure that we can all identify on this image as UWI Capable Blackbirds.
And thank you so much for that, Vernon. Ladies and gentlemen, we have two candidates who are running on a very inclusive platform. So it's going to be a difficult decision for you guys. And now that really wraps up the segment for number 4, which will be the officers, your PROs. We have Mr. Bobby Smith and Mr. Tevin Cole, both running for that position. So you will have your say and your chance to determine who will go forward as your future PRO for the Guild of Students. Thank you guys so much. So we move into what will be the 5th and final segment regarding questions. And this will be the questions for the executives. Now, as Ms. Stephanie Pascal unmutes herself and opens her camera, I will pose the first question to you, Stephanie. Are you still with us, Stephanie? There she is. Excellent, excellent. So your first question, Stephanie, what is the ICC and what is your understanding of your role as the chair of this committee? So a question about responsibilities and your role as the chair of the ICC.
So basically, the ICC is all the clubs, associations, and societies of the campus coming together. It would be the president, of all the clubs, societies, associations. And my job as president, I would be the head of the ICC. And it is essentially my job to assist them in any regard, to provide them with whatever tangible support they may need. It is also my job as the head of the ICC to plan the different, what's the word I'm looking for? To plan the different, I cannot remember the word, but the event under the Guild Expo, right. To plan the different expositions. And to just really promote all the different clubs and associations, make sure that they execute their week and plans of activities.
Thank you so much for that, Stephanie. And a follow-up question to you. You're unopposed as Vice President. So these are all the questions for the Vice President. Do you believe that there is a need for the creation of new and more inclusive clubs, associations, and societies? If so, what are some of your plans?
I believe that any club or any interest that the students want to put forward, if students decide they want to put forward a new club, then I think we should have a new club. The beauty of KVille is the fact that it is so culturally rich and so diverse. We are known as the most diverse UWI campus, and it is really because of our clubs and societies. They are the heart and spirit of KVille. And so if a group of students come together, put the necessary plans in place, and they want to advocate for whether it be a new societal club, a new academic club, a new, possibly an events club or anything of the sort, I will support them and I will do my job as their Vice President.
Thank you so much for that. And your follow-up and final question. I know you said you're an economist, but this one speaks to the constitutionality of your office. If elected, in what ways do you plan to support the office of the president while still maintaining the constitutional autonomy of your office?
Thank you so much for that question. I think that question actually speaks to 2 of my mandates, which speaks about elevating the transparency of the Guild, as well as deepening the level of democracy and integrity showcased by the Guild Council. I will continue to do what I have always done, and that is to advocate for abiding by the Constitution, advocate for accountability, advocate for transparency. My job as vice president is to help all the different clubs and societies, but to also help the president and to help my fellow guild councillors. And so I will ensure that we abide by the Constitution. I think that is the most important thing, is ensuring that we follow the doctrine through which we are governed. We really need to amend the Constitution. I think that's the main thing, especially in the face of the pandemic. As you guys recently know, I tried to move a petition, and because it was not substantiated by the Constitution, it was turned down or dismissed. And so for me personally, I felt that was an infringement on my constitutional rights. And so I think it is very important that we update our Constitution, make it modernized, make it inclusive of e-petitions and operating in a virtual space, so that no other students will feel how I felt and feel that they are not supported by the Constitution and they are not supported by the Guild of Students.
Thank you so much for that, Stephanie. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, all students, your candidate for vice president. And finally, we have now the final aspect of this fifth segment, which would be the individuals running for president. And currently we have those individuals are Mr. Mikhail Willoughby, and we have Asalse Boeing. my serious apologies. I've had an extremely long day. My day starts at 5 a.m. Apologies again. So this segment will include general questions as well as specific questions. So I'll start with the general questions for the two gentlemen running for president. And again, apologies for the current Guild president who is absent for the debate, but we will press on either way with what we have and who we have going forward. So the first general question to the presidents and the persons vying rather for presidency: what are some of the core values that an executive committee must have to ensure that a Guild of Students is successful? And I will start with Mr. Willoughby.
Hi, and thank you for that question. I believe that any student-led organization should have individuals and should have principles instilled that indicate that there's dedication, a passion for student service, trust of the students, and student-centeredness. Now, these things are key. And we need to have persons in these positions who are dedicated to the cause of students, because it can get tough. It can get tough, and you need persons, you need a council that is dedicated to working on behalf of the students. You need persons who are passionate about what they're doing. And we've often seen in so many instances that when there's a lack of passion on the part of leaders, things often fall apart. So we need that passion through student service, and it needs to be a part of the Guild. There must also be that reinstatement of the trust of students. Students must feel as though their voices are being heard and their needs are being met by those that they've placed to represent them. And I believe that the trust of the student body should be reinstated, and that is indeed important to the success of any Guild, any student-led organization. And last but certainly not least on my list here, student-centeredness. And when we speak about student-centeredness, this means that the students remain at the forefront, at the core of the Guild's plans. And I've often said, I use this phrase, the badge will only mean more to the students if it is that the students mean more to the badge. And all this is saying that we must put the students first. And any Guild, any student governing body must indeed have the interests of the students at its core, at its forefront. And I believe those four things are essential to the success of the Guild.
Thank you so much for that response. And the same question for you, Mr. Boyne.
Good night, everyone. I'll just continue from where Nick would have started, as service is definitely really important, one of the most important points when going up and running for positions. And I think it's important for us to recognize that representing the students or being on a campus body that represents students is not necessarily as glamorous as people think. It's truly about civis and truly about trying to do for the students what they need and what they might just want, because they are truly the really most important part. And so civis, commitment to civis is very important, followed by this real representation, the ability to keep going back to administration, even if they say no once, if they say no twice, go back again, pester them, because you have to represent these students. These are the people casting their votes for you, and you have to represent them. That is what you are going in for. And the Guild of Students as a body, not just the president, has to ensure that we can represent the students, as well as transparency. Even if the Guild is doing everything right, without transparency, we lose support. The Guild will lose support. And transparency is especially useful in increasing productivity, because if we are transparent, the students know what we're doing, we avoid confusion, we promote sincere interaction, and that without a doubt will strengthen the Guild. I also want to talk a bit about what Mr. Wilson said earlier when in speaking in his segment, where he said leadership is about understanding people, and the Guild needs to understand the students. We need to understand where they're coming from and what they want, and not just understand the students, but understand the university and what the university wants. Because through understanding both parties, you don't always have to advocate in a confrontational way. You can advocate in a way where you try to meet the needs of both persons and you get a win for both parties. And this is important of not just the president, but the entire council. And also, again, bouncing off of the point that the PROs were speaking about, they spoke about branding. And branding doesn't start with the posters and the Instagram. It starts with building this relationship with the student body. And that is really the most important part of strengthening the Guild and bringing back this transparency and trust in the Guild, building a relationship with the students. And so when I was Guild PRO, we would have had, I wouldn't say a requirement, but we also always wanted at least 3 Guild councillors in every association event. And this is to make sure that these associations could see us, to make sure we're there, to make sure we interact. And apart from events, we need to interact with the students consistently, make sure they know we are there, make sure they know we are here for them. And through this relationship building with the students, we get closer to the students, we get stronger, and we could only do more for the student body. So civis, important, representation, transparency, and this genuine relationship between those representing and those who are being represented.
Thank you so much, Mr. Boyne. And just a reminder, this segment actually allows for a follow-up, so about 30 seconds. If one of your competitors, or let me not say competitors, but really other candidates says something that you find disagreeable, you are certainly welcome to contribute further. And now the following question for both of you. As the CEO or potential CEO of the Guild of Students, how would you ensure efficiency for students? So that's a question regarding specifically efficiency and policy. So I will start with you again, Mr. Willoughby.
Okay, if you don't mind, you said efficiency as it pertains to policy?
Well, efficiency for the Guild of Students, in essence, and that's really a question of policy.
Okay, thank you so much for the question. I'll start by saying the Guild is there to serve the student body. And if it is that the students, they cannot trust the persons who they have placed to represent them, to work on their behalf, then it means that the Guild has done the students a great disservice. When you're speaking about efficiency, this speaks to all the counselors working together as a unit to bring about the best, promote the best interests of the students and bring about change as it pertains to policy, as you mentioned, that indeed promotes not just the best interest of students, but also helps with their development. When you speak about efficiency of a Guild, everyone must have an understanding of what their role means, and persons must feel empowered to work within these roles. So many times we see persons, in their positions, and there's a lack of empowerment there from persons who are there in charge of them. And we need to have that sense of empowerment that allows students, that allows the counselors to work within their respective roles in a way that is efficient and is effective on the part of the student body. If persons aren't motivated, there needs to be special emphasis to help persons remain on the job, and that is to serve in the student body. So when it comes to being efficient, the guild must be one, well-versed in everyone's position and well-versed in what they are to do on behalf of the students. And not only that, put measures in place that allow for each person to develop within their particular roles and best serve the student body.
Thank you so much, Mr. Willoughby and Mr. Boyne. The same question for you, a question of efficiency and the Guild of Students.
Okay, yes, thanks for the question. Allow me to start at a tangent and get to the point. As I said earlier, for me, being a leader is about having the ability to mobilize persons to achieve a specific goal, the ability to represent the interests of the group, and the communication skills necessary to ensure that everyone is moving on the same page, and the ability to adapt to pressure without having to sacrifice quality. And in having a strong leader, efficiency of the guild is almost guaranteed, because when you have that leader that could motivate the other counselors, that leader that could hold their hand, actually I shouldn't use the word motivate, because motivation is something that wears off. When you have a leader who could instill a pattern of commitment in the counselors, so get them to do something every day to help them reach that goal, you get a more efficient guild. Someone who could put systems in place to make sure that things, when they arise, it's not that you're now looking for a solution, because you have this contingency plan in place that would ensure everything runs smoothly. So being a good leader, ensuring that you instill that pattern of commitment among the counselors, make sure you help them, hold their hand if necessary. That aids in the efficiency of the guild. As I said, the relationship with the student body aids the efficiency, because once we're on the same page, we know what we're doing and we can go forward. And also just, oh, sorry, the hand raise kind of threw me off. But yeah, this pattern of commitment is what creates that efficiency. I also have a bit of experience working as a business consultant with a commercial bank in Jamaica, where, my job was literally to come in and look for inefficiencies and present it to them. And so I have this ability to, instill pattern of commitment, instill systems to put in place to ensure that everything is going on the right path. And yes, you wouldn't always have a system for something, but once you have this commitment from the counselors, once everyone is on the same page, once you are willing to work, efficiency will come.
Over to you, Mr. Willoughby. You have your hand up, so I'm very interested in your attention.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that and to add something as well, I think what's been missing at a university is the ability for student leaders to gain information, not just information, but to relate to the experience of those who've passed on before. I would have been speaking to persons and they say, we are here in positions to help the students and to help the guild, but nobody's reaching out. Nobody's coming to ask, how to do this, how to go about, getting this particular thing for the students. And it's all great. It's all great for the guild to have these structures in place to improve the efficiency. But if we're unwilling to go back to our roots, where we would have come from, to get that sort of experience from those who've passed on before, those things can indeed impact our efficiency, help us to move forward in a way that is not only inclusive to students, but in a way that also allows us to fully maneuver and relate to not just administration, but also students alike.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Mr. Willoughby. Can you lower your hand so we can know it's not an old one when you're finished? And I think we have another intervention here from Mr. Boyne. So over to you, Mr. Boyne.
Yes, I believe Nikhil raised a great point, and in terms of tapping into the experience and those who would have been here before. And as many of you may know, if you check on my website, you'll see I've spoken to a lot of past counselors, not only counselors, past association presidents, past deputies, and just reach out to figure out what it is they want to see change, what it is they want to see remain the same, what it is they tried to do that didn't get done, that they want to see happen. And so it's great to get their feedback and find out, what it is they really want to see, because these past counselors, these past students, these alumni, they have real pride in the university. And this is something that, because of the pandemic, many of the students, let me not say most, don't have that KVIL pride, because they wouldn't have the in-person campus and they wouldn't be feeling the university. But when you could go back to these past alumni, these people who really know what it truly is to be a Blackbird, you could find systems to replace, to put back in that would aid the students. And on top of that, I would have also reached out to some of the senior administration in the university to find out what they think is the same. I reached out to Professor Landis, even though he doesn't deal with student affairs, but I reached out still because I know the most he could say is no. But when he said no, then I went to the deputy principal to find out, what it is he's seen in his years, what he wants to continue, what he thinks we should change. And I've also spoken to the director of OSS, Office of Student Services. I called her because I have a great relationship with her during my time here, just because of planning initiatives for students, just to find out, what we should change, to hear her thoughts, hear what they like, what they don't like. And I've even started planning initiatives with her. She asks, do you want me to start one time or wait till after the elections? And, it's all for the students. So it doesn't matter if I get elected, I would still ask her to continue. But it's important to build these relationships with those who were there before. I'm not sure if someone said it earlier, but, we have to stand on the shoulders of giants.
And thank you so much. It's interesting. That's actually a very good segue into the following question, building relationships. And this question really asks, outside of your mandate and responsibilities, do you think that there is room to assist other guild councillors with executing their mandates? And I will begin with Mr. Willoughby for that question.
Okay, thank you so much for the question. And it's a fantastic question in that, because when you are in a position as prestigious as guild president, we'd all love to think that we have our own initiatives and activities that we want to have, the students participate in. But then it's also key for us to remember that it's a council and it's not a one-man island. It's a team of individuals, and working together is essential to put things in place for the student body. And thus it is imperative that the person who is leading the guild, they make space within, and I spoke about this in my mandates, make space within the organization that allows for them to help and not just motivate, not just encourage, but to get in hands-on approach in the activities that these councillors are putting on. I don't know if you guys are keeping up with things as it relates to the guild, but I've worked extensively close with the event officer in the production of that program. I work close with the secretariat to make sure that their current and concise episodes are uploaded and students are, informed. I am working currently with the National Affairs Committee chairperson to have some things for you students. So it is imperative, as I said, for us to make room. And one of the ways that we can indeed make room to assist our councillors is to allow them to know that we're here to support them. They can come to us for feedback, they can come to us for advice, and we can attend the different activities and initiatives that our councillors put on behalf of the student body.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Willoughby. And over to you, Mr. Boyd. I'm sure you would have quite a bit to say on that as well.
Yeah, I actually think this is a great question for both I and Mr. Willoughby to expound on, because as the guild PRO, your responsibility is not just the Office of Public Relations. You also have to assist with the other councillors, other associations. And so your role itself wasn't just your role. You always had to do a bit more. But just to go on a bit more, in my time as guild PRO, those of you who were here would be aware that there wasn't a guild PCC. And the PROs would have spoken earlier about the separation or the distinction between the PRO and the PCC. But in my time as PRO, I would have had to take on a bit of that responsibility because we didn't have that PCC throughout the tenure. And so taking on a bit of added responsibility isn't ever a problem for me. When I was on the guild, I was also a part of the Guild Finance Committee, which isn't necessarily something that you think the PRO is doing, but it's something that we also do. As president of the TTSA and vice president of the Young Economists Association, my persons on my committee would tell you that we try to do things together. And once we have an initiative, everybody has to put their hands in and try to get it done. For our week of events, we had, something for Diwali planned, and it wasn't going as we really expected it or how we wanted it to go. But we were able to pivot, able to help each other out and get it done and put on a good event for the students. And, you know, these are still structured things where you have to take on a bit more responsibility. But even outside of that, just as a student, in my first year when it would have had like MSA week of events, you know, you could just go down to the guild and help them sort out, help them put up tables, help them, you know, fix things on campus, just because you are a person that willing to serve, and the service is important. It's not about well-defined rules. It's not about how glamorous it is. It's really genuine service. And when you're willing to serve, I don't think you allow yourself to be boxed in by the constitutional responsibility. But at the same time, you don't want to overstep, because you don't want to micromanage your council. You want to make sure that everyone's individuality is exposed. Everyone gets to bring their initiatives in the way they want to. So you have to tip a fine line between just assisting and imposing yourself. And I think that's also where, you know, building a relationship with the council will step in.
Thank you so much, Mr. Boyne. And I think Mr. Willoughby has something to add here. You can jump in, Mr. Willoughby.
Yes, thank you. Just to add, and this is outside of, you know, positions of president, vice president, whatever, you know, may have you. This is just solely student service to the students. And when it comes to serving the student body, I believe that there must be some level of the removal of politics. And I'll explain what I mean. Sometimes politics gets in the way of serving, and that could also prevent us from working with persons on our own committees. And I've been a part of committees where I've seen this happen, and it's something that I pay close attention to, and something that I really don't want to have part of the incoming guild if I'm elected as guild president. There must be that overall sense of service to the students, one that breaks barriers of position, one that breaks barriers of ideals and that type of thing, one that's solely student-centered. And I think I've stressed that a lot on the campaign trail. A student-centered approach would allow us to work together, not just as a council, but as a student body, for the advancement and the strengthening of the entire KFO campus.
Thank you so much, Mr. Willoughby. And I see Mr. Boyne wants to jump in here again.
Yes. I hope I'm not taking up too much of everyone's time, but I really love that point about, you know, building the relationship with the council. But I also think is incredibly important to separate personal relationships with the relationships on the guild with respect to your position and your role. And, you know, I could say I have previous experience doing that, because when I graduated from secondary school in my year of, the term after, I was a teacher in the school, a temporary teacher just for the year. And so these persons would have known me as a student and seen me in the big hall playing football, and they would know me as Osaze, as just cool. But at the same time, I would have to separate my personal relationship with these students and go in class and teach them and make sure that they know exactly what is going on, make sure they could get the work done, and make sure that my relationship or lack of relationship with that person doesn't affect our professional goals and what they came to school for. And so even in the University of the West Indies, even on previous guild, you wouldn't always have a good personal relationship with persons, but it's always important to separate that personal relationship and the work, because somebody could not like your head for no reason, but once your work is good, and once you all know you all made a commitment to the guild, to the students, you could get it done.
Thank you so much. And as we move on, the following question, a very important question, one that was raised before, but not to the candidates vying for presidency. And this question in general is related to the issue of welfare. And the question reads, welfare and outreach are two very important things that have been really exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Apart from the guild pantry and the rent assistance, what welfare and outreach initiatives do you have planned for our students and the wider community? So some specifics regarding your plans regarding welfare outside of the guild pantry and rent assistance. And I will start with you, Mr. Boyne, this time around.
Yes, no problem. One of my mandates would have spoken about welfare and expanding the welfare package. But before I go into that, I want to say that if the money is being spent on the students, they would know. You don't necessarily need to have a financial statement for the students to know that money is being spent on them or that initiatives are being done that cater for them. So it's really important first that we ensure that these initiatives are catered to the students and directly benefit the students. As I would have said in my TTSA AGM as president, is all your money, is all your fees, and is all we had to spend it on. Because everybody here, when UE collects fees from you all, pay your $60 guild fee, and that money is to spend on initiatives for you. So you should reap the benefits of that. And going into my initiative to do with welfare is about having a special sort of payment plan for extraneous circumstances or when persons go through something, you know, that alleviates their ability to pay the university fee so that they don't get locked out of e-learning and locked out of the university amenities because of this. And in the Caribbean region, we know that they have a lot of unavoidable things that we tend to have to go through. There was a hurricane a few years ago. Last year, we had a volcano. We're in a pandemic with COVID-19. And all of these things affect students' abilities to pay their fees. And nobody should have to not be able to sit an exam nobody should not have to do an exam because they can't pay. And so that's something we want to put a system in place. I've already started speaking to admin to find a way that we could develop this system. Secondly, I want to bring back some of the initiatives that previous guilds would have had. So there would have been things like where the soup kitchen that the guild provides, or on a morning where it had breakfast for commuters one day, breakfast for halls, breakfast for different persons on campus. And just as things become face-to-face again, just providing refreshments after meetings. So after you all come and sit down to mini debates, you could go and get pizza outside, just different things for the students. I mean, I could go on about welfare because it's really and truly important, but I'll let Nick go.
Hi, thanks for the question. So, you know, it stated, you know, outside of the usual welfare initiatives of the guild, and Mr. Bowen would have spoken to, you know, bring back some of the previous initiatives, and I do indeed believe that those are definitely something that students would be interested in, not just interested in, but benefit from. However, in speaking to a lot of students on campus, there's been the continued issue of the availability of shuttles, and I'm starting broad to narrow down. And given this, you know, unavailability of shuttles, it puts strain on students to make time, active time within their schedule to do things like shopping, do things like transact business outside of UE. And, you know, if it is that students don't have access to these things, then it makes it very difficult for them to not just focus and do their work, but also to strive as a UE Blackbird. Now, one of the initiatives that I have as it pertains to welfare is the introduction of something called a Farm to Fork project. Now, the Farm to Fork project, simply put, is making sure that students are catered to through partnerships by local farmers and manufacturers that have already began speaking to, and they're already on board on this initiative, to really provide additional means of I don't want to say welfare, but food and these type of items like poultry, produce, items along those lines, to alleviate some of the burden of students having to leave campus to go to town to shop. You know, the implementation of this program would allow these farmers and these manufacturers to deliver to campus, and then students will be able to order either through the guild, or they would, you know, say, hey, I'm in need of this particular thing this week. And it's not necessarily going to come from the welfare of the guild, but this will add to the welfare in that students know, hey, I can get reduced prices when these deliveries are made to campus, as opposed to me spending money to go down to town or having to go to these other places. I know that I can have these things at a discounted rate for students. And this is not just for like local students, this is for persons on halls. It's indeed difficult for persons to leave and have to go to town, as I mentioned, to buy these things. So the Farm to Fork project really is to alleviate some of that burden and help to ease the financial pockets of students. And this is outside of the welfare package. If I may just add one more thing, we're looking to partner with a lot of local organizations, and I'll speak about this a lot more in the campaign trail this week, to provide specific packages for our women on campus. I think the women, we understand that health and self-care items for women are indeed expensive in the country. The cost of living in Barbados is expensive on a whole, but we know that, ladies, these things are important, and I want to partner with local organizations to ensure that ladies have these packages, not just physical packages that they can use to, cater to their health, but also partnerships with organizations like the Barbados Youth Development Council, even the Leadership Institute, which is a new organization that caters specifically to women. I believe that women empowerment is essential to our welfare package as a guild, and having these items available for not just our women, but the entire student body is key. And there's a lot more in terms of welfare, but I see Mr. Bowen has his hand raised, so he can go ahead.
Go right ahead, Mr. Bowen.
Yeah, I agree, Nick. We could talk all night about welfare because there's just so much. I actually didn't really think about, the shuttle service as being a part of welfare, because there's actually an initiative I spoke to someone about with respect to the shuttles. Firstly, because the students complain about, limited shuttles. I believe that, right now is because we're in the pandemic, it may not have as many, but hopefully once we go back face to face, they increase the number of shuttles services, the amount. But if not, we could advocate for that. But specifically, as you said, shopping, we know groceries is a tough thing. If you want to get cheap groceries, you had to go to Cherish and Tongue, or Jordan's, which you would have to walk to. But if you want to go to Price Mart or Marcy, you have to wait until it's like 1:30 in the evening in order to go to Marcy. There's no shuttles going that direction before. And so shopping for students to go and buy groceries, they had to try to fit it into the shuttle schedule. And at the same time, you have classes during the week. So I want to explore, either adding an additional shuttle routes or service on the weekend, maybe one day, maybe not even every week, every other week, where we could get a shuttle with routes specifically to groceries to get the students to make their groceries and come back on campus. If we can get it done through shuttle routes, we had to explore bringing back either the guild van or something along those lines.
All right, and thank you so much for those responses. Now, as we move on and come rather close to the end, I have a question regarding accountability, transparency, and those various matters. Now, I would say when I was at the undergraduate level, I think the budget for the guild was $980,000. I believe it was almost $1 million in budget when the year came. Now, this is very serious cash and some serious money. We're not talking pittance here. And obviously, many individuals are very mindful and cautious about how the guild's money is spent. So this is really a question regarding accountability and transparency on how the guild's money is spent, and particularly codes of conduct, because ultimately something may not be illegal, but if it crosses your mind that the student body may have an issue with how this money is being spent, it should really engender a type of response. So the question for you is, how do you ensure a level of accountability, transparency, and a code of conduct beyond the legality of actions, and ensuring that your conduct is one that students could be proud of and there are no real scandals coming out of the finances regarding the guild? And that question, I guess, will go to Mr. Willoughby first.
Okay, thank you for the question. This is indeed a very important question. And as I've often mentioned, these are questions that, I think can also fall outside, just being being a candidate for president. These are real questions that students deserve answers for. To speak to accountability as a whole, and then I'll narrow down finances wise. To speak to accountability, I want to implement a program, rather a initiative called the Guildometer. The Guildometer, whatever you want to call it, however you want to pronounce it. What this does, or what this is rather, is a semesterly evaluation of the guild. And this evaluation will be put out there to the student body, and the student body will be able to I don't want to say vote, but they're able to rate the guild and each counselor based on the work that they have done, how they have managed, their their time in terms of working on behalf of the student body, and also in terms of the planning of their initiatives and the execution of their initiatives, and as well as the finances of the guild. And as I said, this will be done every semester. Students will be able to rate the performances of the guild, and not just the guild, but specifically their counselors within their specific roles on the guild. And what this does, it keeps the guild on its toes. It keeps us accountable to the student body. It's like, hey, we know that if we do X, Y, Z, the students will be able to see and they'll be able to give us a rating. And we're not doing it simply because of a rating. We're doing it because our interests, what we do, is in the best interest of the students. And if it is, that is our mantra as a guild, we allow students the opportunity to rate us on the work that we've been doing. And I believe that keeps counselors on their toes, as I said, and it keeps us accountable, because we must show that we are working on behalf of the students and take responsibility for the lack of our actions and the failure to work on behalf of the students. Now, specifically to finances, really quickly, we've heard on numerous occasions questions about the finances of the guild and the spending of finances. I can speak from experience, having to manage, I guess, the public relations department of the guild. Osaze could tell you, given that he was also PRO, we don't really have that large of a budget to work with. And I had to lobby this year for that to be changed, because I understood that there were some things that needed to be purchased. There were things that needed to be put in place that require the funds. And I believe that if we continue on a trajectory of making the students the center of all of our decisions, as it pertains to finances specifically, there will literally be no need for persons to question the expenditure of the guild, because students can see that these things are being done on their behalf, and it's reflected. Monthly updates should be given about the finances. We're not expecting a huge, long financial report, but updates that allow students to know, hey, these are the things that we're doing on your behalf, and this is how your money is being spent. The students came here, they've paid their fees, and they deserve a certain level of transparency and accountability on the part of guild funds. So there must be the implementation of and structures put in place that allow us to report to students, let them know this is what we've been doing, this is how the money is being spent, and also allow them then to rate our performances as guild counselors as it pertains to not just the management of the guild funds, but management within our particular roles as counselors.
And Mr. Boyne, yourself, a question of accountability, transparency, and a code of conduct regarding the finances of the guild.
Yes, so thanks for the question. I'll start with the financial accountability, because the university has about 7,100 students, and each student pays $60 in guild fee. And so this is like 426,000. And this is the budget that the guild has to spend on the students. And so most persons, most university students has never handled a budget this big. This is almost $500,000. And so it's a big upgrade in responsibility in terms of finances, because, you know, personal finances for somebody in university is probably like $1,000 a month. And so as was said earlier, you know, stand on the shoulders of giants. I would have reached out to Miss Julianne Charles, which is, like, in my opinion, one of the best treasurers the guild has had. And as we will know, right now, we don't have a candidate running for treasurer, but I asked her if, when we do get a candidate, because the guild needs a treasurer, it should be willing to train this person, give them, you know, a little tutorial on how to get things done. And she was willing, and she has, you know, told me that she would assist with that. And then following this request for commitment from her, I would have done like a kind of feasibility assessment. So first I wanted to ask if we could have, you know, monthly financial reports, but given the way the treasurer has to do drawdowns and how they would interact with admin, that may not be the most feasible. But she did say that, you know, quarterly reports is something that could be done. And not so we do have the reports that have to be constitutionally mandated to be done at the AGM and the general meeting. Apart from that, these quarterly reports, this is how your money is being spent from the guild. This increases the transparency. Also, the guild treasurer is supposed to be in contact with all the association treasurers. So once the guild treasurer has this relationship, we can keep everything transparent. And as I said earlier, when money is being spent on someone, they should know. So it shouldn't just be about the reports. The students should feel that the guild is catering to their needs. I lost my train of thought, but with respect to transparency on a normal, part of building this relationship with the student body is so that they could hold us accountable. We all know that genuine friends will tell you when something is going wrong. So if I have this relationship with the students should be able to see me walking on campus, probably on the cricket pitch, and say, yo, what's going on with this? And I should be able to tell them. As also the guild has, within the guild constitution, there's a framework whereby there should be more or less freedom of information. If a student requests information from the guild, they should be able to get it. So any student should be able to at any time request, let me say it is November the 30th, ask the guild, request a financial report, and we should be able to provide it. And nothing should delay this because we are transparent with the money is being used on them, and we should be able to tell them how this is being done.
Thank you so much, Mr. Willoughby. You want to jump in here?
Just one other thing, as it pertains to transparency and finances, it's something that there must be better procedures in terms of the access for the guild to have available funds. Students may not necessarily know, but when they pay fees, we don't put it in a bucket and we keep it stored in the back, somewhere in the building. The university actually has these things. And then when it comes to drawdowns, and I'm sure persons here who've been a part of associations and stuff can attest to this. And I myself, when it comes to drawdowns, I think there needs to be better policy that allows for us not just to access the funds that students, that we use to help the needs of students, but better access so that we can be able to provide them with the information, as Mr. Bowen said, about these finances. I think it's rather crazy that persons would have to wait, let's say 4 months, 3 months for their funds to be drawn on. And I'm talking about island associations and that type of thing here. You have persons who've kicked off their weeks from September, and you're waiting until December, January, and you're not receiving these things. And it's not necessarily directly on any part of the guild, but just the policies that the campus have as it pertains to these things. I think there needs to be a major reevaluation so that students know, hey, we're working on your behalf, and these are the things that we're advocating for, so that we have the things here to provide the things that you need, and you'll be able to see that these funds are being spent on your behalf.
Thank you so much. And is that an old hand, Mr. Boyne, or do you want to jump in again?
No, I just want to jump in a bit because it's something I forgot just now when I was speaking. Because as I would have said earlier in my introduction, I'm an economics and finance student. And so I've worked in finance before. And with respect to finance, there are lots of rules. Even when in employment, you have to sign non-disclosure agreements. And I think these are things that are very important, to have systems and rules in place for how the finances are spent. Even when I was on the guild before, as I mentioned, I was on the finance committee. There are systems in place to ensure that what happens in the finance committee, yes, there's freedom of information, but there are things that not everything could go out, because with example would be welfare requests. Nobody's supposed to know who requests welfare. Nobody's supposed to know who receives welfare like that, because it's not something that's supposed to be done. And the university recently, I spoke to, as I said, the director of OSS. The university is trying to improve and stamp their data security policy, because that's something that the university needs to adhere to, and the university needs to adhere to it, and the guild also needs to adhere to it. And so the same way that in finance, you have this long code of ethics, and as a counselor, not even if you're not the treasurer, as a guild counselor, as someone who puts yourself up for service, you should have this level of responsibility, this level of ethics, to be accountable, to be held accountable, and to be transparent about how things are done. So even if it is a case where a student requests information like who received welfare, and this is not something you are able to provide, transparency will allow them to know, okay, this is why we can't provide you with the names. And so it's not that we just don't want to tell you. There's a system in place, and this is something that we can't give to you.
Thank you so much for that. And as we wrap up, this will be my final question before I wrap up the entire session. And certainly not to be divisive or devil's advocate, but I've seen two very good performers and rather contributions here from the candidates vying for a guild president. And I would say they're pretty much neck and neck in their delivery, their presentations, their answers, their policy, and everything else. So my question to you would be, what gives you the edge above your competitor? I'll begin with you, Mr. Willoughby.
Okay, thank you for the question. I would say this, what I think gives me the edge is my dedication to student-centered leadership. From the time I would have been involved in student council, from the time I was 13 years old, being a music coordinator on my local student council, then becoming vice president, then leaving that school to attend another one, and then advising that school student council. For me, it's always been this passion surrounding student service, student-centered leadership. And I think that having some person in a position as president whose focus is always that of the students, the welfare of the students, the initiatives of the students, and the protection of the students on campus in terms of policy and these types of things. Having some person there who is student-centered means a lot and should mean a lot to students. And I think that's one of the things that gives me the edge. On top of that, although persons, may know me as the Guild PRO, I'm also involved in other things on campus as well. And I would have come up in Circle K International and in Key Club. And these organizations are service-driven, service-led organizations with service to the members of the organizations at the core. And outside of my leadership ability, my ability to mobilize students, abilities to not just create content, but present things in a way that captivates persons, captivates the students. I believe above all else, in addition to the accountability, transparency that is definitely needed in a person who is vying for president, I believe that aspect of student-centered leadership sets me apart, because from day one, it's been about the students, and it will continue to be about the students of the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill. We are proud of our university, and we must indeed be proud of our guild and its leadership. And as I said before, the badge will only mean more to the students if it is that the students mean more to the badge.
Thank you so much, Mr. Willoughby. And to you, Mr. Boyne, what gives you the edge against your competitors?
Against my competitors, I would say my person. I think that's really my edge, because everyone is unique and therefore nobody could outdo you at being yourself. And just my relatability with the student body. I wouldn't say I'm the traditional student leader. I like to make a joke here and there. I like to quote K. Lion instead of, Churchill. I like to talk on Twitter and make jokes about football instead of tweeting dissertations. And it's this relatability with the students that allow me to gain their trust, allow them to feel comfortable talking to me. And, that gives me an edge. I'll speak about my experience because I've served in many capacities in UE. And, just my leadership style, in the sense that you could come to me with something anytime, even if I'm tired, like I'm extremely tired right now. As I said, I was in a 3-hour lecture before here. I'm extremely tired right now, but I could greet you with a smile and assist no matter what, because I'm dedicated to serving. And it's just this pattern of commitment that I have that makes the difference. Just being able to, because I made this commitment, get up and do it every day. This truly sets me apart. The experience is one thing. And experience really gives you the ability to have confidence in your decisions. So being TTSA president or being VP of YA or being on the Caribbean Regional Youth Council, that's all well and good, but this experience just allows you to have conviction to pivot when something goes wrong and, make that instruction when everything is in chaos to settle everyone down and say, okay, this is what we're doing. And I believe that the way my personality is set up, it wouldn't come across as, autocratic if I say, all right, stop, this is what we're doing. Because of that personality, that genuine way to build relationships, the relationships with administration and the relationships with the students, that I believe truly sets me apart.
Thank you so much, Mr. Boyne and Mr. Willoughby. And that concludes our final segment with the executives, the current candidates running for the presidency of the Guild. And thank you so very much for the other candidates and the audience for staying with us. I know it's been some time, but it's definitely one of those more important decisions that must be made. And I thought that we did excellent jobs across the board. So with that, I will hand over to Chanel Blackman. Right, that's correct. And apologies again for butchering names all night. That's been an old habit of mine, but it is what it is. Over to you, Chanel.
Thank you, Devron. I'd like to say, again, a very special thank you for your willingness to moderate tonight. And then a huge thank you to you, the UWI-CAFL student electorate, for coming out and, lending an ear to what each candidate has to say. And last but by no means least, I'd like to commend each candidate for, of course, putting yourself up for service and for coming out tonight and executing. I am sure that you guys have a load of questions. I'm sure you do. And you guys can go ahead and submit those questions to this YouReport poll. All questions will be coming to myself and my committee members, and these questions will be posed both at the debate night and throughout the course of the week for campaigning. I guess we could appreciate that debate night does limit the amount of questions asked. And, in one of my reasons for doing this will be to allow you guys to be more involved in the election process, to be truly informed. So I would like to have these questions go out to the respective candidates. So I'm just going to leave this up for a bit. And once again, thank you everyone for coming out. And as you leave, message the poll, and yeah, just have a great night, everyone. Thank you.
Music from GDMP3.com.
See, the way you whine, you make me go down low, down low. The way you whine, you make me go down low, down low. All my ladies, shake up your bum bum. The girl them shake up your bum bum. The girls them shake up their bum bum. You don't matter where you come from. Oh no 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 no. This girl she a calling my phone. Yeah. Oh no 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 no. This girl she no won't let me go. Every day she follow me for Twitter. Next thing she want make I finger. She want me to answer. Every night she want make I ring her. Baby shake up your bum bum. Shake up your bum bum. Your bum bum. Ladies shake up your bum bum. Bum bum. Bum bum. The way she whine, girl you a mess up my mind. The way you roll your behind, if you make a man to go blind. Girl, me love you topito. The way she my music is sweet oh. The way she dance it oh. Everybody them I love it oh. Yeah. Shake up your bum bum. Everybody rap a bum bum. Yeah. Shake up your bum bum. Bum bum. Bum bum. See the way you whine, they make me go down low, down low. Oh no no no. Where you come from? Yeah, shake up your bum bum, your bum bum, your bum bum. See, oh no no no, yeah 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 yeah. My body not yeah, but my mind not there. Me I like it, la la, it la la, and yeah I'll give it to you. So I know what you want. I'm still on the bum bum, still on the bum bum. All you got to shake up your bum bum, shake up your bum bum.
Oh, so city. I love when you mix, daddy.
Oh, so city.
Sweet girl, just wine for me. Bubble up your waist, girl, just grind on me. I love how you're taking your time with me. Smooth like you wanna have my babies, yeah. Girl, just wine for me. Bubble up your waist, girl, just grind on me. I love how you're taking your time with me. Ooh, like you wanna have my babies, yeah. Yeah. We packing up, no. So move along. This your life. walking, don't tell me that done. The drinking, don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that done. The walking, don't tell me that done. We fretting, don't tell me that. How she whining, don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that done. Well, I in the dancer up on a bumper. Hold on to me, girl, feel she structure. Hands in the air, I come to break. Listening, I hear the DJ. You can't tell me that I have to go home, no. You can't tell me to come up on the road, no. You can't tell me I can't jam on a bumper. You can't tell me, no. The lime, don't tell me that done. The jamming, don't tell me that done. The drinking, don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that done. The walking, don't tell me that done. We fretting, don't tell me that. How she whining, don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that done. Cause I come here for fun. Whining on all woman. I come here to break away now. Like the first panic button. Like everything stop when I jam in something. But me and the DJ cool. Them can't play me for fool. Run to you now. Can't tell me that I have to go home, no. You can't tell me to come up on the road, no. You can't tell me I can't jam on a bumper. You can't tell me, no.
You pump the volume. Oso City pumps the tunes. Follow Oso City on Instagram at OSOCITY.
Just give me permission to walk you. Hey, cause any whining girl, I don't want to interrupt you. See, I'm telling you, baby, the way you're behaving. When you whine like that, tell nobody to stop you. Oh Lord, I wanna go down. Let me see the waistline go wrong. Bubble to the baseline, you can't sit down. Girl, you can't sit down. Don't stick now, we can't prolong. And you got the realest bumper in this tongue. It's the way you move it up and down. And the size and the shape is the way that you whine and the jiggle of the waist. That bumper is too real, it's dangerous. I wanna whine, but it's looking dangerous. I wanna whine, but it could mean danger. When I just want to grind on you, girl, it's too real, it's dangerous. I wanna whine, but it's looking dangerous. I wanna whine, but it could be danger. And I just want to grind on you. You was born for this. I'm giving it all for this. You're walking up and I like it so. I say you was born for this. I love the way you're performing this. When you're whining, baby, whoa. Girl, you make me be last sweat, and we ain't wine yet, no. I'm watching you whine and you know that I'm watching you so that you dip and go down. Make me be last sweat, and we ain't wine yet, no. No, I wonder how that thing behind you just feel. It's too real, yeah. I get in position to walk you. Look, girl, I'm gonna do something, baby, don't let me stop you. No, just keep the thing going, feeling like we floating. I wanna jam to the ground, but I don't want to rush you. Oh Lord, oh girl, I wanna go down. Let me see the waistline go wrong. Bubble to the baseline, you can't sit down. Girl, you can't sit down. Don't stick now, we can't prolong. And you got the realest bumper in this tongue. It's the way you move it up and down. And the size and the shape is the way that you whine and the jiggle of the waist. That bumper is too real, it's dangerous. I wanna whine, but it looking dangerous. I wanna whine, but it could mean danger. When I just want to grind on you, girl, it's too real, it's dangerous. I wanna whine, but it looking dangerous. I wanna whine, but it could be danger. And I just want to grind on you. You was born for this. I'm giving it all for this. You're walking up and I like it so. I say you was born for this. I love the way you're performing this. When you're whining, baby, whoa. Plenty girl of mine, acting like the single. Plenty girl of mine, acting like the single. Whining like she's single, fretting like she's single, selfies like she's single. Jamming like she's single, walking like she's single, pumping like she's single. Anytime she home, she always fully clothed, not that thing exposed. When she home with me, when she leave the house, everything come out and gone on display. Now she coming out in short thing, cleavage bam bam showing, tongue ring she exposed. Chimbadi, chimbadi. Original them can photocopy yo.
We never over. You send me loca. I want you love, love, love. You giving me pressure. Love never sober. We
Guys, I'm gonna go ahead and close the Zoom. So once again, thank you for coming. Take a photo really quick of the photo on the screen if you didn't text us yet. So yeah, bye.
Good night, everyone.